Stream. Okay, we should be going live on YouTube. Looks like we're starting up. And once the stream data gets to Amazon, we'll hit the go live button there. Looks like we are live on YouTube, so good afternoon, friends. Today we are looking at another MOCA adapter. I got these in the other day from Translite. These are MOCA 2.5 adapters. So that's that 2.5 gigabits. We're seeing a lot more of these popping up now, aren't we? Now these, versus the last ones we looked at, are sold as a pair, 175 bucks. And it's got 2 gigabit Ethernet jacks on the back. So these will be easier to test versus the last ones that we were looking at. I'm just trying to see what the best way to connect these things. I'll probably just run it like I did the other ones. You know, one of the things with MOCA I'm finding is that if you go like direct to direct, it doesn't work as well. So we're going to go with a little splitter here in the middle. And I got this splitter the other day from Amazon. You can see it right here, this one. It's a MOCA splitter. You got to make sure you get the right frequency range because otherwise they don't work as well. And what we're going to do with these in a minute, once we jump through, I'm going to record a little bit of the review here as I go. We're going to do a test to see how well they perform. So I've got a little thing already set up to test these out. It's easier to test with 2 versus 4, because before, with the Go coax, I needed 4 of them because I had to hook up, we wanted to test the backbone. So the backbone is 2.5 gigabits, and the most I can get out of any one of these machines was a gigabit because the other one only had a single gigabit port on it. So we needed 4 adapters to run the test. It got complicated. This one's easier because I have 2 gigabit adapters on each. So we can make this a much easier test, hopefully. So yeah, we've got some friends coming in here. So we've got Newer Turin, who I think he was having trouble watching because of his work schedule, but now it's looking like he's moving. He's in the middle of nowhere, and he is in the woods exploring or something. Cool, excellent. Well, thank you for the like. Patrick Chang is in from Philly, hopes all is well, and Nigel is here from London Heathrow. So we're getting all of our usuals in. And it's funny, it's like depends on the time of day. If I'm up online later in my evening, I get more US viewers, and of course around this time, which is when I usually stream, I get more folks from other parts of the world because it's different times. Larry Smith is here from Jersey, North Jersey. We've got Monty from, I forgot where Monty's from, but he's asking a question about two 1 gig ports of the backbone. Yes, so the way we'll decide if this is a successful test is whether or not I can get roughly gigabit speed out of both computers on the desk here at the same time. If we can do that, then the backbone is probably close to what they're close to what they're advertising. I have a feeling that the guts of these are probably the same as the guts of the other ones that we looked at, so I would expect these to perform the same. The one thing I'm not sure about is the power, because these things are only using 5 volts at 1 amp. What is that, like 8 watts or something? That's like a, you know, a standard mobile phone charger. Let's see, 5 volts, 1 amp in watts. What is that, 8 watts, I think? And I don't know what the, I was about to look this up, what the other ones were. Let me look at that real quick, because I'm just curious, because the last ones we looked at were from Go coax. And I get a feeling it's not a lot of power, especially if you're going over longer distances. So I just want to get the specs on that. So let me just do a quick look here on the Go coax site. I'll show you what I'm looking at here just to give you an idea. So let's see, let's go up to camera 4. So we'll switch that on real quick here. So this is the competing one that we just looked at, the Go coax. And let's just take a quick look at the power of the other one. 12 volts, 0.5 amps. You know what, maybe it's the same. Let's see, let's do a watt volt calculator, or watt calculator. I'm just curious if these are running with less power. So let's see, we've got 5 volts, 1 amp, and that is 5 watts, okay? So then if we have 12 volts, let's clear this out. So the other one was 12 volts. It was 0.5, I think is what it said here. Let's take a look. 0.5, yeah. So 12 volts, 0.5, calculate, 6. All right, so it's about the same. That's interesting. So they don't use all that much power. Well, there you go. You learn something every day. I didn't realize how little power these things use. So this is like, plugging this in is like running your cell phone charger, basically, is what that's about. All right, who else we got here? Dustin cannot resist a MOCA review. Yeah, these things are great. You know, if you have issues in your home, you know, with your Ethernet, like you want to get some really stable connection. So what these things are good for is, let's say you're a gamer and your entertainment room is on the other side of the house from where your router is located. You can connect your game console up via Wi-Fi, but if everybody in the house is communicating and watching Netflix and doing stuff on the Wi-Fi, it's going to reduce your performance. What's nice about these is that you get a hard wire basically running right back down to your router. And there's a lot more that you can do on a wire because you've got more bandwidth, so you can fit more data on at the same time. So these things really are almost as good as an Ethernet connection. You get a little bit of added latency. I mean, it's minuscule. We're talking milliseconds. It's not significant. So that is that. That's true, Eric. You're right, because now we are at a situation now where cell phones charge a lot more. So let's say your cell phone from 10 years ago. How about that? That'll work. Jared is here. Dustin is here. Dustin's got earrows connected to them. Yeah, so these things make really good backbones for your Wi-Fi extenders also, especially for mesh Wi-Fi, because you're not relying on the Wi-Fi to communicate with each other. You can send it over the wire, and it works really well. And once again, I'm having some streaming issues with Comcast. So you all may have watched my, hello Thomas Woodford. You all may have watched my rant the other night. Guess what? Magically, like manna from heaven, Comcast calls me and says, oh, guess what? Gigabit Pro's in your neighborhood now. Go figure. So I'm going to work on that. I will let you know if we get it, but that's the 2 gigabit symmetrical service. Suddenly it's available. So we'll see how that comes together. Larry Smith is using MOCA with Google Wi-Fi, as I demoed a while back. Yeah, so that was a great example of using MOCA as a backbone. I did that with the Google Wi-Fi. I still have that in the back. I use the Unify for my network, and I still have to get that video up of how I have segmented things, because I got the Unify Dream Machine, and it integrates obviously nicely with their existing access points, and those are the access points I've been using for a while. So yeah, so I think what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to kind of shoot the review as we go. And I shot the intro right before we went live on the stream. So I think I'll do the hardware overview. And then we'll hook these things up and see how they work. And they should work pretty well. All right, so let me just do a quick little run here. Keith Ellison, this is the first live stream he's watched from Georgia. Welcome aboard. And Jared's not happy with Activision Blizzard. I guess they updated Call of Duty Modern Warfare on the PC and made it less stable. I hate when they do that. It's funny how these things get out of QA when they have those problems. B. Davey says, TiVo works best with MOCA for those of us dinosaurs that still have TiVo. Yeah, a lot of people like TiVo. I think people are still using that. You know, if you're out where I am, where you can't get anything over the air, cable TV still makes a lot of sense, because that's like your only option at the moment, unless you want to, you know, cut your cable TV service and switch over to something else. And if this Comcast gigabit thing is going to happen, I will probably, you know, just get rid of my regular TV service and do YouTube TV or something, because I don't want to have 2 cable subscriptions if I don't have to. And Eric is right. Yeah, I will be upgrading. So what'll happen here is so what Comcast does with Gigabit Pro and this is like industrial level stuff. So they bring in their own router, and you need it because the router is 2 gigabits. It's 2 gigabits each way. So I will probably get a more powerful Unify thing to run with it. I got to figure out exactly how I'll set up the network. I could just run off of their thing and just keep the Wi-Fi access points running with a controller or something from them. So we'll figure out how it goes. Yeah, so Travis, if we do get that, I could do some 4K stuff. And actually, what we'll be doing maybe this weekend, it depends when all the parts come in. I am upgrading my production workflow here. So right now I'm kind of in an in-between state because we are running vMix. I've been using vMix for the last week and a half just to see if I could use vMix as I was using the TriCaster, because the TriCaster is still working. Good machine, but I'm having some issues with it. There's some frustrations I've had with some of the software updates they've done recently. Speaking of like the Call of Duty example, like they changed some things that broke my workflow, and there's a bug that prevents me from using the workflow the way they want us to use it now. And so it's become really complicated. So I was looking at maybe getting a new TriCaster, but they're really expensive. And I said, well, let's try this vMix thing out for a week and see what happens. I've got a laptop that's been running the channel for the last week. It's running everything right now. It's working just as well as the TriCaster is working. Now, in fairness, it took 6 years for PCs to get powerful enough to do what the TriCaster was doing when I bought it in 2014. But I think we're at a point now where I could probably switch over. So at the moment, what you're seeing here, this is coming in over NDI to the vMix machine. I got a new Spark Plus, which I'll talk about when we go and upgrade all of the production stuff. And then my video is, believe it or not, this is coming in to the computer over an Elgato Cam Link, that little USB dongle. That's what's bringing in my video. It looks great. That's working just fine. And then I have the computer here. I'll switch to another screen so it's not shooting back my video. So this computer here, that is coming in over another NDI box. So the only thing that I've got physically connected is this camera. But what I ordered is a new PC, so it's going to be an i9 8-core PC. I figured I'd go with the i9 9900K, the one I have upstairs for the gaming computer. Partly because the chips were coming down in price because they're cycling them out of the product flow there, because they've been replaced by the 10th gen chips. But the one I ordered is going to be fine. And then I got a Blackmagic Deck Link card, which is a PCI Express card that has 4 HDMI inputs, and it can take 4K 60 on each of them individually. So you could have 4 4K 60s coming in. So I could even record at that level, provided the PC I'm building is powerful enough for that. And then I've got over there my old GTX 1080 from my last upgrade on the gaming PC. So that should be enough. I think I could probably get away with 4K 30, and we'll see. And if I get my connection increased, I would certainly go to 4K, because I have all these cameras that I use can do 4K out their HDMI. So that would certainly be a good idea to do that. Sean Flay says he's noticing the video is sharper. Yeah, I think it's looking better. The streams are looking better for sure. So that is what we're going to do. Larry Smith wants to know, am I still going to attempt to build my own ISP? I'm going to still inquire. I got to call the guy. Where I'm at with this is that there is another little company that's starting up around here, and they have the expertise. They're former network engineers for the phone company, so they have the network expertise. I think they have the right connections to get things done properly. And as you know, so I've been, I got so much going on right now, like as far as trying to figure out how to scale my business up. So I was contemplating getting a small office space to work out of. The problem is that it's affordable. I could easily make it work financially, but I'd have less space than I have right now at my house. So I'd have the inconvenience of a commute. Now, granted, the commute would be all of 5 minutes, but I'd be adding the inconvenience of a commute. And I was thinking, like, well, is it really worth it just to get a connection over there? But what's cool is that where that little office is located, these guys can get me gigabit symmetrical for a pretty reasonable price. Actually, I think a little bit less than what Comcast would charge for Gigabit Pro. But there's a potential way to get that fiber up to my house. And it's expensive, although it's less expensive than buying a little office condo thing that I was looking at. And if I could get enough people on the way to buy in, we could make it work. So I've got to figure it out. I'd much rather buy, have my own wire than rely on a company, but we'll see. All right, so I'll take a few more questions and then we're going to get this stuff hooked up. Redresh is asking how I'm doing. I'm doing just fine. Just trying to keep the kids occupied. That's been the challenge this week and for the last month and a half. Patrick wants to know, am I streaming out at 4K? No, I'm doing 720p. The A10 Mini, the max it can do is 1080p 60. And then the Mini doesn't actually do its own streaming. You have to plug it into a computer. So that's where that goes. Dustin says, no vMix for Mac. Yeah, unfortunately, they don't have vMix for the Mac. There is a similar application from a company called Boinks that you might want to look at. I forgot the name of the software. They changed it, but it's pretty good on the Mac, but it's super expensive, more than vMix, unfortunately. And what's funny is vMix I'm surprised how well it runs. It's remarkable. You really need an NVIDIA GPU for it to work. That's what it requires. I mean, it works on Intel GPUs, but they quickly get maxed out. And it does a pretty nice balance of CPU when it needs to and the NVIDIA GPU. It'll make use of the NVIDIA encoders. So right now, this stream is being encoded by the NVIDIA GPU on the laptop here. And then the laptop's GPU is also doing all the video processing for what we're doing here. And so soon in a little bit, we're going to have a 2-up, that is going to be handled by the CPU on this thing. So it's pretty cool stuff. All right, let me shoot this part here, and we'll go from there. Wirecast is good. Yeah, well, I think Wirecast is on the Mac, so that should be worth looking at. Eric says, start knocking on my neighbor's doors. Yeah, here's the problem is that we all are in the same boat in this neighborhood, so we're all stuck at like 12 megabits. So I could probably get if I get enough neighbors to agree to it, I could maybe get 30, maybe, if I were to do some stuff, but we'll have to see where it goes. Abdul Rahman from Saudi Arabia, welcome. What time is it in Saudi Arabia? It's got to be later in the evening now. We're about to get a lot of rain right now. I think it's probably a little bit drier where you are. All right. Let me just so I'm going to shoot part of my video here. We're going to do the hardware overview, and then we'll go from there. 3, 2, 1. So let's take a closer look now at the hardware. These sell for $175, and they sell them as a pair, which of course is important for MOCA to have a pair of these devices. Like other MOCA devices, they are compatible with other brands that you might encounter, and they also work with other versions of MOCA. So this is MOCA 2.5. We also have MOCA 2.0 and 1.0. MOCA 2.0 was gigabit speeds over the coax. MOCA 1 was 100 megabits. And what will happen is that if you were communicating with a MOCA 1 device with one of these, it'll transit data to that device at 100 megabits per second. It'll do the gigabit to the MOCA 2.0 device, and then other 2.5 devices, it will work at 2.5 gigabit speeds. Now, these have 2 Ethernet jacks on the back, and you can plug 2 different PCs into it. Each of these is a gig each, so you don't get the full 2.5 out of a single connection. And I looked through the documentation, and it doesn't appear that you can do link aggregation either to get the max out of these things. So you're going to have 2 separate gigabit connections on here, but not a single 2 gigabit connection. You plug your cable into here for connecting up to the MOCA network, and then you can plug your TV or cable box into this jack here, so you don't, again, lose anything by adding one of these to the room where you have a television. This is powered by a simple USB connection, a micro USB connection. It runs at 5 volts, 1 amp, so very low power consumption. And you've got an on-off switch too on this, which is nice because I don't think many MOCA adapters have the ability to turn themselves on or off. Now, typically, when you connect these things up, they find each other automatically. You do have the option for encryption that you can enable on these if you want to better secure the connection, but by default, they're unencrypted. And once you got two on the network, they'll find each other, bind each other to their coax cable here, and then anything you plug into Ethernet will get transited out the other end. And now what we're going to do is hook these things up, and we're going to run some speed tests on it. What I want to see is whether or not we can get the full 2 gigabits or so out of that backbone connection. So we're going to plug one end into two different PCs over there. I've got two other PCs here on the desk that we're going to connect to, and we're going to see if we can push about 2 gigabits of data over to the other side through these two boxes. Let's take a look. All right. I think that was a good take. So let me just log my clip here, and then we'll talk a little bit about splitters, because splitters are an important factor on these things. And part of the problem I have with this MOCA stuff is I've covered it so often, and I'm trying to balance the fact that a lot of people who are coming to the review kind of know what this is already, but a lot of people don't. And MOCA is very confusing to consumers because it's not cut and dry. There's factors to it that people have to think about, and that's often a tricky thing. So I just want to play back that clip real quick, and then we'll hook these things up and see how they perform. That should be fun, right, everybody? So let me just go over here, and we'll do that. 3, 2, 1. So let's take a closer look now at the hardware. These sell for $175, and they sell them as a pair, which of course is important for MOCA to have a pair of these devices. Like other MOCA devices, they are compatible with other brands that you might encounter, and they also work with other versions of MOCA. So this is MOCA 2.5. We also have MOCA 2.0 and 1.0. MOCA 2.0 was gigabit speeds over the coax. MOCA 1 was 100 megabits, and what will happen is that if you were communicating with a MOCA 1 device with one of these, it'll transit data to that device at 100 megabits per second. It'll do the gigabit to the MOCA 2.0 device, and then other 2.5 devices, it will work at 2.5 gigabit speeds. Now, these have two Ethernet jacks on the back, and you can plug two different PCs into it. Each of these is a gig each, so you don't get the full 2.5 out of a single connection. And I looked through the documentation, and it doesn't appear that you can do link aggregation either to get the max out of these things. So you're going to have two separate gigabit connections on here, but not a single 2 gigabit connection. You plug your cable into here for connecting up to the MOCA network, and then you can plug your TV or cable box into this jack here, so you don't, again, lose anything by adding one of these to the room where you have a television. This is powered by a simple USB connection, a micro USB connection. It runs at 5 volts, 1 amp, so very low power consumption. And you've got an on-off switch too on this, which is nice because I don't think many MOCA adapters have the ability to turn themselves on or off. Now, typically, when you connect these things up, they find each other automatically. You do have the option for encryption that you can enable on these if you want to better secure the connection, but by default, they're unencrypted. And once you got two on the network, they'll find each other, bind each other to their coax cable here, and then anything you plug into Ethernet will get transited out the other end. And now what we're going to do is hook these things up, and we're going to run some speed tests on it. What I want to see is whether or not we can get the full 2 gigabits or so out of that backbone connection. So we're going to plug one end into two different PCs over there. I've got two other PCs here on the desk that we're going to connect to, and we're going to see if we can push about 2 gigabits of data over to the other side through these two boxes. Let's take a look. All right, I think that went okay. And what I want to do, because I didn't mention it on the first shot here, was talk about the splitter. Because on MOCA, the splitter is really important, and you want to make sure that you've got a splitter that can support the MOCA 2.5. So my house is littered with older splitters. I have way too many, and those splitters don't support the frequency range that 2.5 requires. So when I did my test of the last 2.5 set that I looked at, I wasn't able to get the full speed out of them because we didn't have the full frequency range covered. So you want to get, this is the one that I bought. It works fine. So this is like, you may have to go through and replace all your splitters here because if you don't have the right splitter, you're not going to get the best performance. And that's one of the quirky things with MOCA is that it is an analog, I guess it is all analog to some degree, but this is a technology that wasn't designed, I think, to do what it's doing. And as a result, you got to really do a lot of work to get this working perfectly. And again, replacing all of the splitters that you've got, getting very tight connections with your cables are important because even a loose connection can throw things off. Wet connections, rusted out cables, all that stuff is an issue. So you got to be super careful with that. Jared streams on Twitch at 1080p 60, and that's using a 25 megabit symmetrical connection. Yeah, so I only have 12 megabits up. So at the moment, and I dual stream, so I stream to, and I just realized I didn't put the right link to the Amazon thing. Maybe I did. I dual stream to Amazon. So I send out, so I'm encoding at 720p at 2.5 megabits per second, and I'm sending that stream that I'm encoding off my GPU. One is going to YouTube, and then another stream is going to Amazon, but it's the same encoding. So it's a single encoding that goes into both places, and that's what I've been using. So it works, but it's pushing it because I'm basically pushing 5 megabits per second upstream. My connection is 12, and as I mentioned on the wrap-up this past week, this coax technology is what I'm relying on outside. So if anyone on my leg has a loose connection, if there's any kind of interference getting introduced based on the people that are on my leg that are going to the node, any one of those people can throw a wrench in the mix. And it doesn't necessarily mean I have a reduction in bandwidth, but a little bit of interference might mean that my packets aren't getting delivered on a predictable basis, like I'm not getting the quality of connection. So what often happens, and it's gotten better when I first started streaming in volume like I do now about 2 years ago, it was most of the time I couldn't stream at all. So even though my connection was fine as far as bandwidth when I was uploading to YouTube, the connection wasn't reliable enough to send the stream out. And what happened is that I would start streaming and it would just fall apart. And it still does every once in a while. But there's nothing wrong with the connection because there's some interference that happens down the street and it blows up my connection because we're not using fiber, we're using coax cable, and there's so many different places that things can go wrong. I don't even know how many amplifiers I'm going through as I'm going down the street. What's odd is that there's a node. I walk my dog 2 or 3 times a day. I walk by that node every day. It's just literally 700 feet away at the end of the road. I am not hooked up to that one, that fiber node. I'm hooked up to one like all the way down the hill. And I counted, I think there's probably like 3 or 4 amplifiers that I'm going through to get to here. In fact, they put one, they moved me from one connection to another, and then they put a new amplifier like right where my wire goes in. Because I have poles on the street, but I have underground wiring for cable. So it goes, I have a shared driveway with 2 other homes. So it goes all the way down my driveway to this little junction box, and then it shoots back to the house, and then it goes to the neighbors back there also. It's just, they've had no incentive to do any investment around here, and that's really caused some issues. So if I get the Gigabit Pro, which they say I can now get, we'll see, what they'll be doing is actually running a fiber connection to the house. So I get a direct fiber connection as opposed to dealing with this coax stuff, and I think that's going to make life a lot better. So that is it. So Brad wants to see a MOCA adapter with a 2.5 gigabit port. I would love to see that too, because you can get, like we reviewed a few weeks ago, this is a 2.5 gigabit Ethernet adapter. These things work great. They're not that expensive. I think this is like 50 bucks. Look how small it is. It's not that big. And this would easily work with my new 2.5 gigabit or 2 gigabit Comcast connection if they can deliver it. And yeah, I mean, this is available. You can get this. And that would be great to have in one of these MOCA boxes. I don't know why they don't do it. My guess is that they're trying to hit a price point. So the Go Coax adapters are 59 bucks a piece. These are $175 for the pair. I would imagine adding that 2 gigabit jack would be more expensive. I don't know if the Action Tech has a 2 gig Ethernet jack. For some reason, they won't sell to the public. They're only selling to cable operators. Eric is in Brazil. He's got fiber internet. Can I plug this into the MOCA box with an Ethernet cable? Yes. So if you have existing coax in the house and you're not using it, it will work with that existing coax. In fact, in my home, all right, so even though I still have my traditional coax connection, in my home, what I did is I don't use the cable jacks in the house anymore, and there's a reason why I don't, because when they built this house, they put like 4 cable jacks in every room, and there's splitters all over the place. And then the downstairs is better than the upstairs, because the upstairs, they ran a single wire from down here to up there, and then they split it 12 ways to Sunday up there. There's like no signal strength anywhere upstairs at all. So when the HD Home Run Prime came out, I took all the TVs off the cable coax, and I switched them to set-top boxes with the HD Home Run. And so all my coax just terminates into the closet over there from the cable company. I don't use any of it in the house. So I've got essentially dark coax that I can use to run the network through. And I do that actually on a regular basis. If we have to do a shot in one of the other bedrooms, if I'm testing something in a room or whatever, like the IoT stuff, I will run a MOCA adapter up through the dark coax I have in the house and go that way. So yeah, you could totally do that if you have coax cable running through your home. It doesn't have if you have no service, it'll work with that. 3, 2, 1. I'm going to do another recording here just to talk about the splitters. 3, 2, 1. Now, before we hook up our little experiment here, I do want to talk about your wiring in your home for a minute, because you likely have splitters that are bringing these cable wires throughout your home, and you need to make sure that you've got the right splitters running between your cable jacks, because MOCA 2.5, I found, requires a broader frequency range than prior versions of MOCA did. And I discovered the hard way that my splitters throughout the house are a little bit too old, or at least not supporting the right frequencies to get me the best performance. So I bought a couple of these. These are BAMF splitters. The brand doesn't matter so much as the, I'm going to start that again. 3, 2, 1. Now, before we get into hooking these things up, I did want to talk a minute about splitters. Because if you have more than one room in the house with a cable jack, you likely have splitters that are bringing those connections around your home. And you need to make sure that the splitter you are using, all of them, have a frequency range like this one does, between 5 and 2300 megahertz, because MOCA does work on frequencies that some of these splitters won't allow to be transmitted. They might just filter it out. So you do want a larger frequency range here for making sure you get the maximum connection. I'm going to start that one more time just to get the right thing there. So Eric says cable techs often take shortcuts, don't they? Yeah, I don't know who did this wiring. I think the builder must have hired an electrician, and he said, hey, hook up all these wires throughout the house, and that was it. And it was unusable when I moved in. In fact, the first week I was here, I spent like a day just going into all the wall. They had like splitters in the wall jacks, because they'd bring the wire into the room, they'd wire up a jack, and then split it at that jack to the other one. Crazy. And then oddly, they put one in the ceiling of my bedroom. Like in the ceiling, there's a jack up there. Like they're going to hang the TV from the ceiling or something. I don't know. I'd be afraid it would fall on me. Jerome says he appreciates what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm tired of monopolies. I just want choice. Give me some choices of internet service, and I won't complain as much. That's what I want. And if I got to do it myself, I will. Mark my words. And here's the thing: the coax cable business, which is what most of the cable providers use, this is obsolete technology, and their networks need to be upgraded to compete with direct fiber. They are at a significant disadvantage right now because they've not made the investment in their networks. So to bring fiber to the home, they have to overhaul everything, and they can't do it. So they're limping along here trying to get this stuff to work better, but it's just not designed for this stuff. It's designed for one-way transmission, not two. These work in the home because you're not transmitting that far, you're not using that much power. But when you start going, quarter of a mile, it changes the dynamics significantly. Fiber is so much better. Yeah, hit those likes, everybody. Let's get those likes up. All right, let me do this take here real quick, and then we'll hook this stuff up and see how it works. 3, 2, 1. Now, one thing you got to take a look at in your home before you wire up a MOCA project is the splitters that you might be using throughout your home to get your cable jacks hooked up in each room. If you have multiple cable jacks around your house, there's a good chance you have splitters, and you need to make sure the splitters you're using support a pretty wide frequency range. So this one from BAMF I bought a little while back seems to be working very well with my MOCA 2.5 devices. You can see here it goes from 5 to 2300 megahertz. When I first started playing around with the MOCA 2.5 adapters, I was noticing the speeds were not getting close to the advertised 2.5 gigabit performance. And what happened in my case was that I had a lot of older splitters that didn't work at frequencies as high as this one is working at. So I had to go through and start replacing some of those older splitters with one of these, which does support a wider frequency range. This one from BAMF, I was doing well. Well, I think what I might do is cut it there, and then we'll pick it up on a different shot here. So give me 1 second. Let me just check and see how that came out there. We're going to rename this one to 202. This is Splitter Talk. And we're going to play that back real quick, and I can see if I can grab it from a spot there. What's been fun about my new workflow is finding ways to make it all work. So I'm able to do a lot of what I was doing before on the TriCaster on this now, and it's working great for me. 3, 2, 1. Now, one thing you got to take a look at in your home before you wire up a MOCA project is the splitters that you might be using throughout your home to get your cable jacks hooked up in each room. If you have multiple cable jacks around your house, there's a good chance you have splitters, and you need to make sure the splitters you're using support a pretty wide frequency range. So this one from BAMF I bought a little while back seems to be working very well with my MOCA 2.5 devices. You can see here it goes from 5 to 2300 megahertz. When I first started playing around with the MOCA 2.5 adapters, I was noticing the speeds were not getting close to the advertised 2.5 gigabit performance. And what happened in my case was that I had a lot of older splitters that didn't work at frequencies as high as this one is working at. So I had to go through and start replacing some of those older splitters with one of these, which does support a wider frequency range. This one from BAMF, All right, good. So we can cut at frequency range. So give me 1 second here, folks. I'm just going to make a quick adjustment to my thing there, and then we'll pick it back up. All right, and we'll just say 3, 2, 1. So if you're noticing speeds not matching what we're about to see with these, definitely take an inventory of your splitters, and that might be the key to getting it all working faster. All right, now let's hook this stuff up and see what happens. All right, that was a good segue. So I'm just going to go in and just rename that file real quick, and then we will 203 segue to performance test. All right. I just I like to log my clips while I shoot, which helps me out there. All right. In Raleigh, North Carolina, things got much better when Google came in. Yes, see, that's it. Everyone has the same experience, Eric, is that once the competitive forces start to play into the area, suddenly service gets magically better. It's pretty crazy. Konami says, I'm shocked that the internet is holding up without data caps. Yeah, so here in the US, a lot of the big ISPs removed their data caps during this crisis because we are all in need of better, or we all need the internet a lot more than we did before. So now here's the thing. I have a 4-way splitter on here and no terminators. So I don't know if, we'll see how this works. If I don't get the speeds that I'm expecting, then I will likely, I'll keep the stream going for a little bit longer, but if I don't get the speeds that I'm expecting, then it's because I need to get some terminators for that splitter. So we'll see what happens here. So we're going to put this into this MOCA thing. So I'm going to hook this one up and get it connected to the computers over there. And then what I'll do is connect the other one live, because you can see the little light kick on when it's ready to go. It's pretty cool. And Trap Exit says they're not having problems. Yeah, they are actually having issues, especially areas that rely on coax, because you have a lot more upstream communication going on right now. And these networks, like I said, are just not designed around upstream. And what's happened is that over the years, they haven't been accountable for those problems because people weren't using it for that, and now they are. And suddenly, it's like, oh my gosh, we actually have to provide decent upstream communications, right? Oh. So I like that these connect over USB, because that adds a lot of flexibility. So here, I'll give you a look at something other than my empty area here. You can look at that for a minute. And I'm just hooking up the other adapter right now. So give me a second to attach that to the computers. And we'll get it online, and then I will attach the other one. This one's a lot easier to test than the last one. Those coax, that Go Coax one, that video, that took me weeks to do because I kept, I had to figure out like how to get the test to work, because I had to get 4 adapters, I had to get the splitter, there was all this stuff that I had to plan around. So that was a little more challenging than this one. This one is just a simple two computers, and we were done. All right, so we got one hooked up, and now I'm going to hook up the other one. And I've never shown you, I got to show you all this one day. I've got this great plug, this one of those power strip things. It's a circular thing that Kensington sent me a while ago, and it's got 6. I'll show it to you after I'm done with this. It is like the best power adapter I've ever bought. It's fantastic. All right, so I just want to collect the Ethernet cables I want to connect to here. So where'd the other one go? So it's this one, and then I need the black one. So where did that black one go? I have so many cables running up through here. It's a mess right now. Okay. So let's power this on. And we're going to go and hook this all up. So Gavin says, Jersey and the Channel Islands upgraded everyone to 1 gig up and down for free. My goodness. You know what I got? Nothing but a bill. That's what I got. I got a bill. All right, so I'll probably shoot some B-roll later to fill in the gaps here. So we'll just talk about, I think what I'll do is maybe power it on. I love to show things working in real time because I think it gives people a good expectation as to what's going to happen when they hook things up. So we'll see where it goes. Okay, 3, 2, 1. All right, so we've got the other unit now connected to 2 PCs on the other side of my room here, and we're now going to connect up this adapter to the other one via MOCA. And although this is a desktop simulation, this is exactly how it'll work when you connect these things throughout your house. So what we're going to do first here is just attach that MOCA cable here to the MOCA jack on the back here and just twist it in. One thing you really want to do with this stuff is make sure that you've got a really tight connection to each end and to your cable jacks, because that's one of the leading causes of issues with MOCA and any other kind of coax connection, is that if you don't have a really tight connection, things don't always go as well. Sometimes it might be good to take a pair of pliers out and really get it going pretty nicely there. Now that we have the wire connected, what we want to look for is the MOCA light here to light up. And like I said, this will happen automatically. It takes a little bit of time on an initial power on, but usually within a minute or two, the MOCA light will light up, and that will mean that the 2 devices have found each other on the coax network and are communicating. And you can see here now the light is green and it's ready to go. Next, we're going to plug in my 2 computers here, and then we should have a functional network where we can transit data. Now what's going to happen is that we're going to send data from the computers over these Ethernet cables. It's going to push it out the coax cable to the other side, and then it will come back again. And that is how it works. You're basically bridging your Ethernet here to the coax network and back again, and these devices serve as that bridge. All right, so we are all connected here. It looks like things are functional. The lights blinking there indicate that there's some traffic being transited already, so they're probably just sending out some packets randomly here. And we're going to run now what's called an iPerf test and see how much bandwidth we can push through this device to the other side. Okay. I think that worked. So Konami says this seems like a better idea than Powerline. Yeah, this is much better than Powerline. I've been continually amazed by how good it is. And I'm assuming this blinking I'm seeing is just not a connection fault, but a, so which one does it say? LAN 2 is the one that is kind of blinking on and off. So LAN 2 is this little guy here. It is connected. I think it's not losing its connection because the other side is looking good. Yeah, so I think my other Mac is a little more noisy. All right, so I'm going to just play back this, play this back real quick and see how it looks. Eric wants to know if these MOCA units run hot. Yeah, they all run hot. They really do. And it's surprising because they don't have a lot of voltage going in or amperage going in. Again, 5 watts, but they are not, I would guess they're not very power efficient given how hot they get. So yeah, you want to keep them clear. Most of them can be mounted, so you can mount them, you mount them on the wall or whatever. And these don't have, by the way, these don't have an MPS button for security. That's the one thing I liked about the boxes from GoCoax, is that you would set up the security code on one of them, and then you push a button and automatically connect the others. These don't have that, so the security is a little bit more complicated with these. All right, so we're going to say 204, initial connection. Just want to play this back, everybody, just to get a sense as to how it works. And let's do that. 3, 2, 1. All right, so we've got the other unit now connected to 2 PCs on the other side of my room here. And we're now going to connect up this adapter to the other one via MOCA. And although this is a desktop simulation, this is exactly how it'll work when you connect these things throughout your house. So what we're going to do first here is just attach that MOCA cable here to the MOCA jack on the back here and just twist it in. One thing you really want to do with this stuff is make sure that you've got a really tight connection to each end and to your cable jacks, because that's one of the leading causes of issues with MOCA and any other kind of coax connection, is that if you don't have a really tight connection, things don't always go as well. Sometimes it might be good to take a pair of pliers out and really get it going pretty nicely there. Now that we have the wire connected, what we want to look for is the MOCA light here to light up. And like I said, this will happen automatically. It takes a little bit of time on an initial power on, but usually within a minute or two, the MOCA light will light up, and that will mean that the 2 devices have found each other on the coax network and are communicating. And you can see here now the light is green and it's ready to go. Next, we're going to plug in my 2 computers here, and then we should have a functional network where we can transit data. Now what's going to happen is that we're going to send data from the computers over these Ethernet cables. It's going to push it out the coax cable to the other side, and then it will come back again. And that is how it works. You're basically bridging your Ethernet here to the coax network and back again, and these devices serve as that bridge. All right, so we are all connected here. It looks like things are functional. The lights blinking there indicate that there's some traffic being transited already, so they're probably just sending out some packets randomly here. And we're going to run now what's called an iPerf test and see how much bandwidth we can push through this device to the other side. Okay, I think that worked. So we're going to do a quick test just to see if both of these can work on their own before we record it. This is an app called iPerf, and what iPerf does is it just pushes data. Ooh, that looks terrible. Let's see, now it's starting to pick up here. There it goes. It pushes data, basically just a blast of it, and what it does is it really saturates the connection to give you an idea as to exactly how much speed you can get over that network on a theoretical basis, basically. So what I'm seeing here, just so you know what I'm looking at, this is the magic number to look for here. So this is typically what you would get over gigabit Ethernet. So this is working right now over the coax as fast as a single gigabit Ethernet connection would typically work. So we can shoot this part because we have a good connection here, so that is good. And so we're just going to clear off the test here. Now, this is an app on the Mac called Wi-Fi Perf, and there is a so iPerf is an open source project. You can find it anywhere on the internets. And then Wi-Fi Perf is another package that has a. I'm just going to do another shot here. Wi-Fi Perf just adds a GUI around it to make it look nicer, and I found it works better for my purposes because it just looks nicer. So it's easier for people to interpret. Usually it works on like as a DOS command prompt kind of thing. All right, let's get that shot there. Perfect. Okay. Okay, so let's get the laptop arranged like this. Okay. So Anthony says 5 watts is a lot of power, so it's a red flag if it's not at least warm. Yeah, it's definitely getting warm here already. Definitely heating up a little bit. Okay, so we are going to set up my shot here. So I'm going to go like that. So we'll start it and then cut. And we'll kick it off here in 3, 2, 1. All right, so we're going to start with a single test just from one computer to the other. Again, we're going to transmit data out of here through the box, through the coax, over to the other side to a computer that is waiting for the data here. I'm running what's called an iPerf test, which will basically send a stream of data through the network here to see how much speed we have. And I'm just going to zoom in here so you can get a sense as to the bandwidth we're pushing. So we're getting exactly what I usually get with Ethernet on this device, about 950 megabits per second. And when you account for overhead, we're definitely getting what would normally be, for me at least, a gigabit Ethernet connection from one machine to the next. So we are at least getting gigabit out of this. So now what I want to do is bring on a second computer and then have it start transmitting data at the same time to see if these boxes can maintain 2 of those gigabit connections simultaneously. Let's check it out. All right. So that was a good run here. I'm having a good day. I'm getting the words out, which I don't usually do very well. So I'm just going to log this clip real quick here. And I like to play these back just to make sure I got everything worked, because I'm not always looking at the screen as things are going. So speed test 1. And then we're going to jump into the control panel on these two, because they do have a web control panel. So let's go to here, 3, 2, 1. All right, so we're going to start with a single test just from one computer to the other. Again, we're going to transmit data out of here through the box, through the coax, over to the other side to a computer that is waiting for the data here. I'm running what's called an iPerf test, which will basically send a stream of data through the network here to see how much speed we have. And I'm just going to zoom in here so you can get a sense as to the bandwidth we're pushing. So we're getting exactly what I usually get with Ethernet on this device, about 950 megabits per second. And when you account for overhead, we're definitely getting what would normally be, for me at least, a gigabit Ethernet connection from one machine to the next. So we are at least getting gigabit out of this. So now what I want to do is bring on a second computer and then have it start transmitting data at the same time to see if these boxes can maintain 2 of those gigabit connections simultaneously. Let's check it out. Okay, that worked. So now we're going to do my 2-up screen here. Flood of Sins is here. Hello. Steve would like to know would this be better to run to a detached garage other than an Ethernet cable underground? I think if you can get Ethernet is always the best way to go. But if you don't want to bother with it and you've got a coax connection out there already, then these work great for that. So I've always said it's just almost as good as Ethernet. It's as close as you're going to get to Ethernet with a non-Ethernet extension is basically my rule of thumb with this one. So yeah, and Eric is correct. So they have, I have one actually. Where did I put it? I saw it the other day. I may have moved it because I was rearranging things. But I have a MOCA filter, at least I had one that was on this table, which is no longer there now. But they have these filters that they recommend you install because theoretically, other people who might be on your leg to your node would be able to connect to your MOCA network potentially if you don't have it filtered out at the source. And I did a video on that. We actually had an interview with the president of the MOCA Alliance, and he really gave a good overview as to what you got to think about. So what you could do is you could have security on the device. That's one way to do it. But the filter is really the best way. And if you really want to be secure, you do the security and the filter. So Mark wants to know, am I going to upgrade to Go MOCA or Translite, or have you already upgraded? Yeah, so I'm going to use both because Go MOCA let me borrow 3 of their devices. I had bought one and then realized I needed 3 more, so they let me borrow a few. So I'll probably be using these throughout the house. I don't need to use them that often. It's only when I've got something in another room that I need to go to. So most of my rooms that I use my computers in, I have Ethernet in right now. Yeah, I will definitely be using these because they just have more performance. Larry Smith wants to know, what unmanaged switch would you recommend? I use I have a TP-Link switch. I got one in the closet there. I got more ports than I need right now on it, but with this NDI stuff, you're always in need of more Ethernet. But that one's worked fine. It's got like a lifetime warranty. At my old job, I bought a bunch of them. So we had a big one, like a 48 PoE switch for our phone system. Those things worked great. Robert wants to know, what's the advantage of the Translite over the Go? I would say the only advantage with the Translite is that it's got 2 Ethernet jacks on the back versus 1 on the Go coax. So here, I'll show you the difference here. So you've got 2 Ethernet jacks, and that might be useful. You could have 2 devices hooked up. But you could just as easily, on the Go coax, you could buy a little switch and plug it in, and you're got the same thing. So it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other, although we'll see what the performance is, right? So let me cut to, so this is the other computer. And let's see if the other computer gets the same performance. Now this one runs like 20 megabits per second slower for some reason, and I have no idea why. So let's let it kick up. It'll go up to like 920 or so, and then it'll, yeah, so now it's getting, it takes a second for it to kind of get into gear here. Actually, what's interesting, it is running a little lower. Okay, there it goes, 920. See, this one is my little Mac, my little MacBook 12. So, yeah, there it goes. So I think what we want to look for, it looks like it's running a little bit lower than, it's like 10 megabits, but it's like marginal, right? So, but this one is usually a little more finicky. What I might do is get my wife's MacBook Pro. There it goes. I think it's doing a little bit better now. You know what I might do? Maybe I'll get my wife's MacBook Pro just to eliminate any potential concerns here. It was funny because on the last video, somebody noticed that like the Mac here was running like 20 megabits below the other one. Give me 1 second here. But this little MacBook, I think the USB just has a limit to what it can push out. Because it's doing like 913, 987 here. I'll show you, I'll give you a closer view of it here. And this Wi-Fi perf only runs on the Mac, so I like to, so I've got, it's connecting to 2 PCs on the other side, but I like to have it be consistent. Let me see if my wife is using her computer right now. I can just steal hers for a minute. My little Mac sometimes just gets a little overwhelmed. Can I borrow for 20 minutes? I only need it for like a few minutes. So if my wife can let me borrow her computer, I will be able to speed this up a little bit. I just want to rule out computer issues because like people will notice like 892 versus 949. That's a big difference. All right, I can swap you mine. Okay, let me go grab that real quick. Talk amongst yourselves. I will be right back. give me 1 second here. Let me swap the computer out. And, oh, she's right here. Okay. I just need it for like 20 minutes. I'll give it right back to you. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, okay. All right, I'm not going to put it up. I'm going to log you out. How's that for service? It's like, it's right down here. Boom. So we're going to just connect hers up real quick here. And I'm just going to log her out. And I just want to make sure that I've got a workable connection here. And let me just log in as me on here, and we'll go from there. Ugh. Yeah, I'm kind of short on Macs right now. I've got my big MacBook Pro, and then my wife has a MacBook Pro 13 that I got a little while ago. I could have sworn I had an account on here. And we actually got her MacBook got overhauled because what happened here was that she, her keyboard, the keyboards on these Macs are terrible. So she had a keyboard problem. And then, let me just get this going here. I'm going to turn on her Do Not Disturb. And then the battery was going. So they ended up like, oh, and then so they actually did good for us because we had the keyboard problem. There was a battery recall on this machine. And so like it had all this stuff going on. And so then the hard drive crashed. So when I sent it in, I said, hey, the hard drive crashed and the battery's bad. And they ended up redoing the keyboard. They fixed the battery. So I got a brand new battery, brand new keyboard, and then they changed the hard drive too. They did it all and it didn't charge us. And this thing was like out of warranty. I think I had Apple Care. I was past Apple Care on it too. So they did good. They did good by us. So I'm not always down on Apple. I do think going to the Apple store is like going to the DMV, but the service on their the service they provide through their phone support is really pretty good. All right, so let's get this thing situated here. And I've got this cool dock that I use that's got like Ethernet and it's USB-C. It's got it all dialed in. I just got to set up an IP address for the. So I'll show you what I'm doing here. I'm just going to set up an IP address for the USB LAN. And I think, let me see, we're on camera 4 here. So I think it's this one. So we're going to do 192.168.2.15. Actually, it's got to be 10.15. And we'll apply that. And let's see, I think I might have to connect and oh, I may have to get a driver too. Hang on a second, everybody. If not, I'm just going to connect another Ethernet thing to it. Yeah, that one doesn't like that. Okay, so we're going to hook up our other Ethernet, my little 2.5 thing here. So let's do that. Yeah, so this Mac is a MacBook, this is the 12-inch, and it's starting to get there, you know. It's a little on the older side of things, and it's a little rough right now. I have to nuke. We have a term in the Mac world called nuke and pave. Maybe they do that in Windows too, where something is like just run. There's something going on with it that it doesn't like, and it's not been running at its peak efficiency. So I am exploring getting a new, just kind of overhauling it, just wiping it out and starting over again. Because the battery drains even when it's asleep, which tells me there's something running in the background that's really killing it. So Mark John wants to know, are you going to test more than 2 devices on the MOCA network? I have 5 using MOCA. I'm not sure with this one. I really just want to make sure that I get the full bandwidth through it. Because I have, just from my experience with this stuff, is that it works great when you can get up to 16 of them. So I don't think we'll have any issues with other devices. I only have 2 of these, but maybe what we'll do is we'll hook up an additional we'll hook up an additional MOCA device. I've got, the problem is at the moment, I don't know where my other ones are. So I was in the process of starting to clean up my workspace here, and then the pandemic hit, and Jake, who's in here to help me, wasn't here, and then everything just fell to poop. So I'm kind of playing catch up here. All right, so we're going to connect to 192.168.10.3 is the other PC, I think. I'm just going to run a quick test here to see if we get better performance. Okay, so let's cut back to the other screen here. So now you're seeing we're getting similar to what we got on the other one. Perfect. Okay. So this is a good opportunity now to pull up our 2 up here. And this will be a fun little test here, because what we'll do is we can just like jump to that. So I think what I'll do, let me see where we ended up on the last clip, is on me. So we'll go back to here and we'll start that test, and then I'll start it on the other one. So give me 1 second here, everybody. Flood of Sins wants to know what I bought with my $1,200 relief check. I don't know what I'm going to do with that. Part of the problem is that I have to give it back next year, so it's I just got to hold on to it. Okay. I am going to pick it up here. 3, 2, 1. All right, so now we are going to test 2 computers transmitting simultaneously to see if this is able to maintain that 2.5 gigabit backbone or close to it. So we're going to start the test again on the Mac like we were doing before, and we should start seeing some bandwidth flowing through on here. Sometimes these tests start a little slow and then they pick up as time goes on. That's what's happening right now. So you can see we are now going at full blast here at the 949, 950 megabits per second we had before. Now on the left, I've got another Mac running with this same test going to a different PC out the other Ethernet jack on there. And you can see now we're running both at the same time, and hopefully we can get 950 or 949 or thereabouts running simultaneously out of both of these, and it looks like we're getting that. So what's happening now is that we've got essentially close to 2 gigabits going through the Ethernet on here, 1 gig on each Ethernet jack. It's then going through that coax cable to the PCs that are on the other side here, and as you can see, we're not really seeing any dip in performance here when the second PC started transmitting, so it looks like we are getting the advertised MOCA 2.5 bandwidth out of these Translite boxes. Isn't that a fun test? So yeah, there we go. So now I can give my wife back her computer. So let me just log that clip and make sure it looked okay. And then I will give her back the computer because she was using it. And we'll go from there. So we'll do dual adapter test. And we'll just play that back real quick and see how it came out. 3, 2, 1. All right, so now we are going to test 2 computers transmitting simultaneously to see if this is able to maintain that 2.5 gigabit backbone or close to it. So we're going to start the test again on the Mac like we were doing before, and we should start seeing some bandwidth flowing through on here. Sometimes these tests start a little slow and then they pick up as time goes on. That's what's happening right now. So you can see we are now going at full blast here at the 949, 950 megabits per second we had before. Now on the left, I've got another Mac running with this same test going to a different PC out the other Ethernet jack on there. And you can see now we're running both at the same time, and hopefully we can get 950 or 949 or thereabouts running simultaneously out of both of these, and it looks like we're getting that. So what's happening now is that we've got essentially close to 2 gigabits going through the Ethernet on here, 1 gig on each Ethernet jack. It's then going through that coax cable to the PCs that are on the other side here, and as you can see, we're not really seeing any dip in performance here when the second PC started transmitting, so it looks like we are getting the advertised MOCA 2.5 bandwidth out of these Translite boxes. All right, I can live with that. Perfect, okay. J-Rose, yeah, it is 2, but we can't do more than that because it's only got 2 gig ports on there. So theoretically, if we added another box and then started transmitting, you would see, I guess you would see, you could get another 500 megabits, half a gig probably through it on the backbone. But it's definitely working there. All right, so I'm just going to disconnect my wife's computer now because we're done with her, and I'll get this back to her. And then we will come back and finish this up. We've got a few more things to look at on this because we also have a control panel to look at. So we're going to do that next. And so let me get my computer hooked back up here. Let me get this back to her. And I will be right back, everybody. So talk amongst yourselves. You can look at my computer there. And let me just run up the stairs and drop this off. All right, we're all done with that. Okay, I am back. And my 3-year-old made brownies with my wife, and they are good. Every time I walk by that pan, I'm grabbing a little chunk off of them. All right. There we go. So Jay Rose says, so MOCA is not a gimmick, and now onto the Flowbee. I gotta set up that video, because you know what I want to do? I'll work on this today. What I want to do with the Flowbee is either want to get my barber on, who's he's a funny guy, or if I can't get him, I want to get the president of Flowbee to like walk me through it. So that's it. Yeah, that door needs a little WD-40, doesn't it? Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to connect to the control panel. And I happen to have the instructions. Now, the instructions they give you are like on a photographed, and they photocopied it and stapled it together. And this is the problem with MOCA. It's not like you buy Google Wi-Fi or buy one of these mesh systems, you get this beautiful, app and the guide and all this stuff to get you into it. This stuff is, yeah, it's just that. Jay Rose uses the Flowbee. You know what? And this is what I've been talking to people about. I have not found anyone who's ever had a problem with a Flowbee. I have heard from a few women who had very long, thick hair that the blades had jammed up on them at one point, and I think that was because they didn't put enough of the blade lubricant in. But it definitely seems like a product that's aimed at men. I think it's aimed at frugal men, of which I am one. And, it works. And if you don't have a complicated haircut, it should be pretty easy. So I've been watching videos about it. I'm going to use the shorter, kind of the longer one on my top of my head. They have like a tapered one for the side, and then you do the sides with a different one. And it'll work pretty good. Jay Rose says, thinner hair is better. He has thin hair. Mine is thick, so it'll be interesting to see if it gets jammed on my head, because I really do have thick hair. So we'll see how it goes. It's funny. I am fortunate that I did not inherit a lot of. So I have my mother's side of the family has diabetes and cholesterol issues. My father's side of the family, no problems, except they're all bald. So I got my grandfather's hair from my mother's side, but none of the other problems. So I'm in good shape. I got the hair and none of the other health issues, knock on wood. So my cholesterol is like super good. As far as I know, I don't have any blood sugar problems. So I think, all things considered, I did okay on the on the gene thing, because I'm 43, and I asked my barber. I said, like, is this hair going anywhere? And he said, no, you're good. You're not losing it. So so hopefully that is what happens. So now the adapters have their own IP address. So let's see if I can connect to it without having to redo my IP on the. I think if they work like the Go coax ones do, it'll just connect, but it looks like no. So these have an IP of 192.168.144.200. All right, so you do have to change your network IP address, so we can easily do that. So we're going to go to 144.100. And then it's going to be admin and admin. There we go. And I'll show you what I'm looking at here. So let's switch over to that camera. All right, so we'll pop in and just see what we've got. This looks almost identical to the Go coax, just with different colors. Isn't that funny? Yeah, this is like identical. I mean, this is like exactly the same interface. That is funny. All right, so we got some more questions here. Well, it's funny, Robert. You know, my grandfather, my grandfather on my father's side, he ate like fried chicken. I mean, he did not have a good diet, and he never had a. I mean, honest to God, like he ate he just had a really bad diet, fat and cholesterol wise. Never had a problem, yeah, so I think a lot of it is related to diet, but he did pretty well there. Robert used a ECB 2500C for Ethernet over coax for years with TiVo, but it went bad. Had to go bad. Didn't hear many good things about the power line adapters. Yeah, power line adapters are not good. And I don't know what's going on with MOCA right now, but we're starting to see a lot of these really inexpensive 2.5 adapters come out. So like I mentioned, they're selling these as a pair for $175. You can find them on the link on screen right now. And then the Go coax ones we looked at last week, those are selling for $59 each. And these will work with those. So you don't have to buy all of the same brand. If it's MOCA compatible, they'll talk to each other. And what I will probably do before this video goes up is I will go out and get my other MOCAs hooked up so that I can show how it works here. Actually, you know what I might do? Because I have another thing here that I haven't reviewed yet. But so if you go on Amazon, you will see these MOCA, these Action Tech devices. And these sell for like $15. And what they are is a Wi-Fi adapter that has MOCA on it. So you plug this into your MOCA network, and you're ready to go. So I think what I will do here is just plug this in so you can see what will happen when you have another device beyond the two connected. So let's do that real quick, because I already have it set up pretty much here. So let me just get the power cable out. And that way we can at least look at what it looks like when another one's connected. And Robert just ran some Ethernet to solve his problems. Yeah, if you can, Ethernet is always the best way to go, because it's far less complicated. You connect it and you're done. This stuff, you got splitters, you got filters, and yada yada. Robert's got the Go net speed. He's doing good up there in Hartford. Yeah, so Hartford has a small fiber outlet that is delivering super fast connections to people. A friend of mine is paying $70 a month, and he gets symmetrical 500 megabit. And for 90, you get a gig. And it is like as Robert just said there, every drop you get of speed out of that. In fact, your Wi-Fi won't even make full use of it. You can't get the Wi-Fi going that fast yet. So Zozu said Verizon gave him one of these. Yeah, so I think what happened with these, this may look familiar if you've got one in your house, is that Action Tech sells most of their gear not to consumers but to carriers. And so there's a glut of these. This is new. I thought these may have been like pulled out of a customer's home, but this is brand new, 15 bucks. The problem with this, though, is that I believe it's only MOCA 1.0. We'll find out when we connect it to the MOCA network, which I'm going to do right now. And we'll see what it's running at. Oh, ow. I'm okay. I stubbed my toe on my thing there. So let's see what we get out of this when we plug it in. So we're going to connect it to there, and I've got another coax cable we'll plug in here, and we'll see what it connects at. Does it need to be turned on? Let's see. It's powered. Okay, there we go. Let's have a boot up process here. So I'm going to review, we'll do another stream with this one. I will be reviewing this separately. I mean, what a deal. And so what I've been saying to people is, buy a pair of these and one of these, and you got, or even buy the Go Coax and buy one of these, and then you can extend your Wi-Fi and get a much more reliable connection. What I like about this is that you get the Wi-Fi, and it does AC. Then you have 2 Ethernets on the back, too. They have another one that's more expensive. So let's wait for that coax light to come on. Let's give it a second here. I think I hit that WPS button inadvertently on the top. So I just want to be able to demonstrate what happens when you have another MOCA device on the MOCA network. And Zozu, you might be right. I think it is just wireless. It's just the G. You're right. But they do make one that has the AC, which costs a little bit more. Okay, so we're on the coax here. So let's go and just put it aside here for a second. And if we go over, if we go over to this option, and I'll pull it up on, I'll give you a better view of it. This one. Okay, so yeah, so this is a MOCA 1.0. So you can see how it's going to work here. So if we go from device 0 to device 1, we're at this rate. And it is, so what's interesting about MOCA 2.5 is that it's actually going at like 3,600 bits per K per second, or 3 megabit. I'm losing my mind here. It's actually 3.6 gigabits, but you don't get that because of overhead. So you're getting a faster rate between 0 and 1, but if we were to go from this device 0 to 2, it's going to go much slower because that one's only a MOCA 1.0. J. Rose is wondering if that ramp up is a MOCA thing or an Ethernet thing. I think it's an Ethernet thing. I've noticed that before, and it could be that the computers we're connecting to were in a lower power state, and it might have, you know what I mean? So it's likely, I've seen it do that on Ethernet also. So I've never noticed MOCA I've never noticed any real difference there between the two. Okay, so that's cool. All right, so why don't we pick it up from, and this has got to be running with the same chipset as the Go Coax because this interface looks identical. It's exactly the same thing. You can adjust the transmit power though. That's pretty neat. And LOF, what does that stand for? I think a consumer should not touch any of this stuff. Lowers frequency. So this is set by the supplier at 1350, although mine's at 1150. Please note, if you reset the adapter or return the adapter to factory settings, the LOF will be 1150. Set the LOF to the desired frequency, save and reboot the MOCA adapter. All MOCA adapters in the network have to have the same LOF to be effective. I'm not touching it because it's working, so we're just going to leave it as is. And then you can name each of the adapters. So this one right now is called master, but I could change it to one of these things. And then the security settings. Let's see what that's all about. Yes, so this is, again, identical to what we had on the other one. The difference, though, is there's no WPS button. Yeah, I'm just looking through the security settings here to... Bear with me for 1 second. Okay. And if I'm not mistaken, this is the one you want, this DEXT. And I forget if you need to do other security settings for the older devices. That's the one thing I'm not certain about. Okay, well, I'm going to probably come back to that after I do a little bit more research, but I want to shoot this now. MOCA says, isn't a MOCA a type of coffee? Yeah, it's a type of coffee that I love and I haven't had in a while. I got to go get myself a MOCA or make myself one. Robert asks, yes, it does work over disconnected coax. In fact, that's how I use it in my house. So I still use my cable subscription, but I have it chopped off at in my room over there, so it works fine over dark coax, no question. If you got it, hook it up, it'll work. Not sure on that one, J. Rose. Some splitters probably do have a ground attachment. I'm probably not working with it right now. Travis Rhodes says he wants extended band D. So, right, so that's for the faster ones, right? So do we have to do a different security setting for the slower one? So for example, if I go back to the security settings, for that 1.0 device, I'm guessing D low should be set for that one? That's the question I have. Let me shoot this control panel thing here, and then we'll go from there. All right. 3, 2, 1. Now, each of the adapters has a web-based control panel that you can log into. Oddly, this looks almost identical to the Go Coax adapter control panel we looked at a few weeks ago, so there's definitely some hardware in common here. This one has some stuff that you can adjust. I would suggest not touching any of it because out of the box it works, but if you wanted to adjust the transmit power, you could do that here, and you can make some adjustments if you're having some issues on your network. However, this is stuff that I think is probably going to be in the realm of the coax experts and not everyday consumers like me. So I'm just going to leave it alone because I'm going to be getting too far into the weeds on that one. Let me start one more time. 3, 2, 1. Now, each of the devices has a web-based control panel. You do need to change your IP address to get to the default here, which is 192.168.144.200. You can go in and change it so that it can get an IP address from your router, but by default, this is what it's going to have. So you got to put yourself on its network to do that. There's instructions for that. See, I'm trying not to go too far into the weeds here because people don't really need to be in here. So that is something I'm going to try one more time with. Hello, Victor. We've got a lot of people out here right now. We've got about 381. There's so much, you know what's funny? There's so much interest in these MOCA devices. It's intriguing. Partly because they work so well, and they're kind of like, these things are kind of like the hidden gems of network extension because they are so much better than Powerline. They're better than Wi-Fi mesh. They can be used as a backbone for your Wi-Fi mesh network, so you actually get better Wi-Fi mesh performance out of a MOCA device versus not. And the 2.5 here, as we just tested, is doing pretty good. All right. So let me pick this up again. I'm just going to try to keep this really super simple. I want to say what this is, but I don't want people touching it because there's no reason to. 3, 2, 1. So now if you log, 3, 2, 1. Now each of these devices has a control panel you can log into. You do need to change the IP address of your computer to get to them. This is the default IP of each of the boxes that you'll have. Once you get in here, the control panel actually looks a lot like the control panel for the Go coax adapters we looked at a few weeks ago, so they must have some hardware in common. There are some settings you can adjust here for transmit power. I would leave all of this alone just because it's working out of the box and I wouldn't mess with it. But if you desire to do so, you have some controls here, and there's more details about some of those settings in the instructions. There are security settings on here like there are on other MOCA devices. One of the things that I liked about the Go coax device we looked at a few weeks ago is that you set the password on one device, and then all of the others you could just push a button to get connected to the other ones securely if you did want to enable encryption on your network. Here you're going to have to log into each of them and put that password into each of the boxes individually. There's no button you can push to speed up the process, so just be aware of that. However, the security is MOCA standard security, so you can have a Go coax box on your network along with these, and as long as the password matches, they will talk to each other. One other thing of note here is that you can take a look at the health of your MOCA network. So for example, what I've done here is I've connected up a MOCA 1.0 device to our little coax network here, and you're able to take a look at what the data rates are between them. So for example, this is adapter number 0, and I can connect to adapter 1 here at 3656, basically 3 gigabits and change, but we lose a lot of that to overhead on the MOCA network here, which is why they say it's a 2.5 gig adapter. But you can see we get the full speed out to adapter 1, which is the other Translite box that we set up. And then I've got this older MOCA 1.0 device, and you can see that one runs at a much lower speed. So if I communicate from 0 to 2, you get a slower connection than what you would get between 0 and 1. But what's nice about this is that it doesn't slow the whole network down if you plug in an older device or want to keep using your older devices with the new one. And this page here is a great way to keep an eye on what's connected to your network and how it's all working. All right, I think that works. So let me just log that clip. We got some comments in on the Amazon side of things. Edward Doyle says he's got an older house built in 1910, and using coax is easier than fishing the Ethernet through the newspaper they used to insulate the walls. And it's funny he should say that, because I had an old house that was actually built around the same time his house was, and I had newspaper in the walls too. And I did a little renovation project, and the construction guy had no interest in history, and unfortunately he's like, oh, I found some old newspapers that were like in really good shape crammed into the walls. And I said, oh, that's awesome, did you keep them? Oh no, I threw them out. But what was cool was when we pulled the siding off the house, we found the people that built it had written their names in pencil on the wood. When we pulled the siding off, there were pencil writings visible there, which was really cool. All right, let me go to my list here and just add the control panel. So yeah, these MOCA 2.5 has been really nice. I'm really happy with it. Okay. Oops, it looks like I pulled the wrong file there. Did we not record that? That's what happened here. Hang on, folks. Maybe we did. Give me 1 second here. I may have hit the record button twice or something. Yep, that's not the right file. So let's add another one. It's this one, 207A. All right. Well, this was good. I wasn't intending on actually shooting a video. I was just going to play with this, but this worked out. I think that's the right one. Let's see what that is. Yeah, that looks 3, 2, 1. Now, each of these devices has a control panel you can log into. You do need to change the IP address of your computer to get to them. This is the default IP of each of the boxes that you'll have. Once you get in here, the control panel actually looks a lot like the control panel for the Go coax adapters we looked at a few weeks ago, so they must have some hardware in common. There are some settings you can adjust here for transmit power. I would leave all of this alone just because it's working out of the box and I wouldn't mess with it. But if you desire to do so, you have some controls here, and there's more details about some of those settings in the instructions. There are security settings on here like there are on other MOCA devices. One of the things that I liked about the Go Coax device we looked at a few weeks ago is that you set the password on one device, and then all of the others you could just push a button to get connected to the other ones securely if you did want to enable encryption on your network. Here you're going to have to log into each of them and put that password into each of the boxes individually. There's no button you can push to speed up the process, so just be aware of that. However, the security is MOCA standard security, so you can have a Go Coax box on your network along with these, and as long as the password matches, they will talk to each other. One other thing of note here is that you can take a look at the health of your MOCA network. So for example, what I've done here is I've connected up a MOCA 1.0 device to our little coax network here, and you're able to take a look at what the data rates are between them. So for example, this is adapter number 0, and I can connect to adapter 1 here at 3656, basically 3 gigabits and change, but we lose a lot of that to overhead on the MOCA network here, which is why they say it's a 2.5 gig adapter. But you can see we get the full speed out to adapter 1, which is the other Translite box that we set up. And then I've got this older MOCA 1.0 device, and you can see that one runs at a much lower speed. So if I communicate from 0 to 2, you get a slower connection than what you would get between 0 and 1. But what's nice about this is that it doesn't slow the whole network down if you plug in an older device or want to keep using your older devices with the new one. And this page here is a great way to keep an eye on what's connected to your network and how it's all working. All right, that seemed to work okay. Got some questions here we'll handle real quick. Handquake is here because he's bored, and I'm better than anything on TV. That's good. I'm glad this is, this is what's great about, people like to watch people work. And some people make woodwork. I can't do that, but I shoot videos about gadgets, and I'm glad that people enjoy it. And I enjoy doing these streams too. It's a lot of fun for me too. Let's see. Yeah, the ActionTech WCB 3000N was the one I was just talking about. And I'm going to do a review of that one soon, because probably tomorrow. Now that I got all this stuff hooked up, I may as well do it. But that's a really good deal. $15 and you've got a Wi-Fi MOCA access point. The problem with it is that it's $15 because it's MOCA 1.0, so it's only going to give you like 100 megabits back and forth. Not a lot. But if you are, if you're just trying to connect another room and you're just doing some basic stuff, probably going to be fine, but you're not going to get the full speed. I want to thank Slinky1284 for your super chat contribution. Great work on MOCA. Has been using it since 2009 at his parents' place on FiOS. And actually, one of the things that I didn't mention earlier is that MOCA is an alliance. Basically, it's an industry standard that the cable TV industry has been using, and Verizon uses it quite heavily with their FiOS. So FiOS brings fiber into your home, and then their cable boxes that they hook up interconnect usually over coax cable via MOCA back to the FiOS thing that they put in your closet. So MOCA's been used quite a bit. I believe the Comcast modems that are defaulted to you by the cable company, unless you have your own modem like I do, those boxes also have MOCA built in. I don't know if they always enable it, but if you go into the control panel, you can turn it on, and you've got MOCA coming right out of your cable box there, or out of your cable modem, so it works really well. Who else we got here? Cedar Lake is here. Loves the videos on network equipment. I've got more. We're going to do one, actually. I've been meaning to get to this for a while now. I've got this QNAP switch. It's a network switch, but it's also got a NAS built into it also. It's like all in one. So we're going to look at that soon, as I owe them that review. So we're getting there. I've been eager to, I just needed time to mess with it. And part of what I like to do is I like to have a bunch of videos in the can so I could spend a lot of time on something. So that's where I'm at right now. Tech Flood wanted to mention from one of my videos earlier this week, if you're stuck with 10 megabit upload, order a second line. Yeah, so a lot of people have written in to say, so just so everyone's aware of what he's talking about, I had a video that I posted the other day about my woes with Comcast and bandwidth, and I'm stuck at basically 10 or 12 megabits per second. So my streams aren't very reliable because it's a coax out the door network here, and it's just not good. On top of the fact that I don't have a lot of bandwidth to begin with. And it's frustrating because we have a lot of video that we push around. So I have projects that I send to Jake, who's now working distantly until this Corona thing is over with. But I also have things that I've got to upload to multiple platforms, and I can't just put one video up on a cloud server and then distribute it. They all are different. So for example, when I upload a video to Amazon, they don't like pricing mentioned in the video, so I've got to take that out. Pricing needs to be in the YouTube video because everyone wants to know what something costs. There's always these things that I got to do. So it doesn't make sense. So I've been really struggling with bandwidth because I just don't have enough of it, and I'm probably spending about a quarter to a half of my labor costs, mine and Jake's, on just waiting for things to upload, because some interfaces require us to monitor it, so we can't just upload and walk away like I can do with YouTube. And so some folks have said, well, why don't you just get another connection from Comcast or connect up to your neighbors? But I would be paying double to only get another 10 megabits. So I'd go from 10 to 20. Yeah, I would double my speed, but it's still not enough speed, if that makes sense. So if I had a way to get, 200 or 300 megabits in here, I'd be golden. But what happened, so just so everyone knows what's going on, so there's about 200 more people in there than were before. What happened after my video went up Monday night is Comcast magically called me up and said, oh, we've got Gigabit Pro for you now. Really? So now I'm hoping, so here's the thing. I'm definitely going to have them hook it up. I mean, why not? I mean, I got to pay for it, but it's actually somewhat reasonable, at least for my area. It's $300 a month. For me, that's a worthwhile expense. I will easily make that back ROI day to day, just because we're going to get things uploaded quicker. But I want to make sure it's available to the whole community. I want to, you know what I mean? This is not about just me, because my concern has been that the lack of competition in my area means that that the region is at a disadvantage versus other regions that have better options. So for example, in West Hartford, Connecticut, only 45 minutes up the road from me, they have a small fiber provider that's in there now wiring up homes with direct to the home fiber for $70 a month. You get 500 megabits half a gigabit, 500 megabits in both directions. Whatever. It's getting late. I can't speak anymore. You get 500 megabits in both directions. You can spend 90 and get a gigabit. I spend 120 and I have what I have. So I am at a disadvantage here because my business can't get access to the things that a town with more competition has access to. And so we are at a disadvantage. So great that they can hook me up with 2 gigabits, but if they can't hook up the rest of the community with 2 gigabits, then we're still at a disadvantage. So that's my ask of, or will be my ask of them. We got some more super chats coming in. We got to pay for that internet connection, everybody. Travis Rhodes, $4. Thank you very much. And we also got Jay Rose, another $5 there. Thank you very much for your super chats and super stickers, everybody. Slinky, so here's the other problem. So a lot of people say, why don't you get the business connection? And I can't get the business connection here. They don't offer it. So I called, and so here's how it usually goes with the business office. I call every 6 months, and I say, I'm stuck here at 12 megabits per second. Oh, we have more than that. We definitely have more than that. I said, okay, we'll get back to you. And what's funny is when you call them, the first salesperson you get knows nothing about upstream communication. They don't even care about it because in their minds it's all about downstream, because that's all they've been told to sell is downstream. But business needs upstream as much as downstream, if not more so. So when I say to them, oh, they'd say, we got half a gigabit or a gigabit down. We have gigabit service. I said, okay, is that gigabit in both directions? Oh, yeah. Then they call me back. Oh, well, we're sorry, it's not gigabit in both directions. It's 35 up. So I said, okay, I want that. And then a week goes by, and they call me and say, we're sorry, but we don't have that available to you. What you have is the best we can offer. Because where I am, for whatever reason, that's all I can get. So I am at the absolute max upload speed for my location, business or not. So unless they can hook up this gigabit thing. So that's what we're hoping to see here. Yeah, so Robert's on that half a gigabit service. A friend of mine just got it up there. So if you watch my video, I had him run a speed test for me. I was just like, I hate you. I'm going to move to your house. And here's the thing, I love where I live. I don't want to move just for an internet connection because I've got a nice big yard. The schools are great down here. I mean, this is just like, for my kids, this is the best place in the world to grow up. And I don't want to move. And I could, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, I could move to there's an office park. I've been actually looking at office space, and if I go in there, I could actually get gigabit service reasonably priced from a small ISP that's starting up in the area. But I have to buy this place. I mean, I could rent it, but I'm going to buy it. But I'm going to have less square footage than I have now in my house. So I got a bunch of stuff going on in my head that I've got to figure out. I'm trying to scale the business. That's the next thing. So we'll see how it comes together. All right. So Robert says, the last time Kara brought him down to my town, he got lost. Yeah, it's easy to get lost around here, which is another nice thing about where I live. Nobody can find my house. In fact, we had ordered groceries, and they delivered it to some other person's house around the corner. And so we know where things go when they get delivered to the wrong house, because it happens all the time. So I'm in one town, and then the road that I'm on is the same road so I can walk out my door and be in the next town. So I'm on the border of two other towns. So my road is the same name as the road in the other town. So 70 whatever, like the address for my house in the other town is the same as it is here. And they're right around the corner. So the GPS always sends people to that house if they're not paying attention. So we put on the grocery thing. Make sure you deliver to a house that looks like X, because our house looks one way and the house that is around the corner looks differently. And this guy didn't follow directions and left it at the other house. And we got the picture. They take a picture and so then I sent my wife. My wife runs out in the van, drives to the other house, and they had taken the food in. And so we contacted the delivery service, and they credited us back for the whole thing, which was nice of them. And then the people that are around the corner, they must have dropped the food off, because when the replacement order came, the person who dropped it off said, hey, by the way, there's another order in front of your garage. So we ended up with a bunch of melted ice cream and stuff. It was very nice of those people to bring it over here. So that was good. Ed says, I need a van. I have a van. We have a Toyota Sienna, and it is an awesome van. I love that thing. Not as much as my car, but I love that van. All right, so let me see where we left off on that. Okay, so I think we're good on these, unless there's anything else we need to cover. I think what I'll do in the conclusion component here is just talk about maybe how this one might differ from the Go Coax. So the pricing is interesting on this, because this is $175. So if you get two though, you got to buy them as a pair. So these do cost more than the Go Coax ones do. They're a little bit more, but you get the extra Ethernet jack, and that's the question, because you could buy the Go Coax for $59, but you get 1 gigabit Ethernet jack on there. So if you wanted more Ethernet, you got to buy a switch to attach to it. So by the time you buy the switch and the Go Coax, you're at the price of this one. So it's what they call 6 of one, half dozen of another. You have to figure it out. All right. Mark Wahlberg has a supercharged Sienna. That's got to be a rocket ship. It probably does okay, because they're all-wheel. So the Sienna we have is all-wheel drive for a minivan, which is great for where we are in the winter. So where I am, we have these super hilly roads in my neighborhood, and I had this little Mercedes hatchback that they sold a while ago. It was like a 2002. It was a rear drive hatchback. It had no weight in the back, and then it had those low profile tires. And there was one night I'm trying to get home. I couldn't get my car up the hill. It got stuck and I couldn't get home. So I had to go all the way around, and I had to navigate to every flat road to get me back to where I was. It took me about 15 miles to get home, even though I got stuck right around the corner. TechFlood has a 520 connection and can get that on the speed test, but its downloads are terribly slow. Are you hooked up via Ethernet, TechFlood? Because it's possible that they just overloaded your node there. So that could be it. All right, let me shoot the conclusion here. 3, 2, 1. So overall, this is a nicely performing MOCA 2.5 adapter. It looks to be performing just as well as the Go coax adapters we looked at a few weeks ago. And you might be wondering, is this one any better than the Go coax? It really isn't. It's pretty much the same thing. The difference, though, is that you get two Ethernet jacks on it, two 1 gig Ethernet jacks, versus a single Ethernet connection on the Go coax device. So if you are looking to attach more than one device to your MOCA adapter, then this one might be the way to go. At the moment, they're only selling these as pairs, and the per unit cost here, it does cost a little more than the Go coax does, but if your intention is to plug a switch into your Go coax device, you'll probably be spending about the same either way. So really, the difference here is the additional Ethernet connection, and if you need that, then these might be the best way to go. One thing I could envision doing with one of these is maybe having one direct connection to your game console or other device where you want that low latency connection, and then the other one you could hook up a Wi-Fi access point and extend your Wi-Fi out. So it's kind of nice to have the ability to plug two different things into a single device without the need for a switch. These devices don't add pretty much any latency that's noticeable. It might add a couple of milliseconds here or there, but I think for most folks this will be perfectly fine. And even for gamers, that added millisecond or two is probably not going to make a big difference, especially given how much more reliable the connection is going to be. And always at the end of the day, Ethernet is best, but MOCA is probably next to the best for extending out your network, and you likely already have the cable wiring in your home. And if you are not using your cable wiring anymore but have it still, you can run this without any other cable TV connection going over those cables. In fact, I do that over portions of my home right now. So that's going to do it for the Translite MOCA adapters. Let me know what you thought down in the comments below. And until next time, this is Lon.TV. Thanks for watching. And we're out, as they say. Perfect. That's great. I am like so far ahead of the game right now. I think I'm like 4 or 5 videos ahead right now, because I like to post like every other day. So I've got 3 queued up. Do I have 3 queued up? I've got the Blink Mini I'm going to put up tonight. I have the Lenovo Y540 gaming laptop. I have, oh yeah, I got 3. And then I did the AOC monitor that I just finished up. So I've got that AOC gaming monitor. So that's 3. I've got my unboxing video 4. This is going to be 5. So I'm like well into next week already. And that's the one thing. I've been pretty productive as we've been going here. So Nando says, is this scripted? It is not scripted. And the reason I don't script anything is that it would take me too long to fumble with the thingy, the teleprompter. So I just talk, and I keep talking until I get something that I like that works. So that's how that goes. All right, let's take a look at that conclusion, folks, and we'll wrap it up from there. 3, 2, 1. So overall, this is a nicely performing MOCA 2.5 adapter. It looks to be performing just as well as the Go coax adapters we looked at a few weeks ago. And you might be wondering, is this one any better than the Go coax? It really isn't. It's pretty much the same thing. The difference, though, is that you get two Ethernet jacks on it, two 1 gig Ethernet jacks, versus a single Ethernet connection on the Go coax device. So if you are looking to attach more than one device to your MOCA adapter, then this one might be the way to go. At the moment, they're only selling these as pairs, and the per unit cost here, it does cost a little more than the Go coax does, but if your intention is to plug a switch into your Go coax device, you'll probably be spending about the same either way. So really, the difference here is the additional Ethernet connection, and if you need that, then these might be the best way to go. One thing I could envision doing with one of these is maybe having one direct connection to your game console or other device where you want that low latency connection, and then the other one you could hook up a Wi-Fi access point and extend your Wi-Fi out. So it's kind of nice to have the ability to plug two different things into a single device without the need for a switch. These devices don't add pretty much any latency that's noticeable. It might add a couple of milliseconds here or there, but I think for most folks this will be perfectly fine. And even for gamers, that added millisecond or two is probably not going to make a big difference, especially given how much more reliable the connection is going to be. And always at the end of the day, Ethernet is best, but MOCA is probably next to the best for extending out your network, and you likely already have the cable wiring in your home. And if you are not using your cable wiring anymore but have it still, you can run this without any other cable TV connection going over those cables. In fact, I do that over portions of my home right now. So that's going to do it for the Translite MOCA adapters. Let me know what you thought down in the comments below. And until next time, this is Lon.TV. Thanks for watching. Okay, I'm okay with all of that. So that's good. We've got another one in the can, as they say. Edward Doyle says, good point on the low latency, and normally he would just hook up a switch. Yeah, that's what I usually do, is I just get a switch attached. But I kind of like an adapter that's got 2 Ethernet connections on there. It just gives you some more flexibility. And you have to decide whether it's worth $30 or not. So maybe, yeah, these are, you know, a little bit more, but you know, that's kind of the thing. But yeah, these are good. And I think the guts are the same as the Go coax, because the web control panel is the same. So there must have been like a big run on these 2.5 chipsets, because they're all like showing up magically, you know. So, but they are unique, and that's one of the things that I like, you know, when I'm looking at this stuff, is that, you know, if this was the same thing, I probably wouldn't review it because there's nothing different about it. But this one's different. It's got you got 2 ports on there. You got the on-off switch. That's good. You don't have the security button, though. That's the one thing I miss on that. Let's see. TechFlood's using Ethernet. I would say if you're using Ethernet and you're not getting those downstream speeds, I would call your cable company and ask them. The chances here are that they've overloaded your segment of the node, and you're just competing with your neighbors for bandwidth. So yeah, I'm happy I'm getting fiber too. I'm hoping I'm getting fiber, so we'll see. There's always something that happens when I get, this is because we went through this 2 years ago, back last October 2018. You know, it was all looking good, and then right at the last stage of the build out process, they pulled the rug out from under me. So I'm not holding my breath here just yet, but and what I want to do, I got to call the little ISP guy tomorrow and just connect with him, because part of me just wants to do it myself, you know, but I don't know if I want to go there. We'll see. Am I in the ISP business, or am I in the video making business? That's what I always ask myself when I get one of these crazy ideas, like, what business am I in? I'm in the business of making videos, and if I'm not doing that, let's you know, my father owned a glove company. We were in the PPE business for a long time. We left the business about 3 or 4 years ago, 4 years ago now. But I would come to my dad with some crazy idea, and he goes, "Son, when I'm not making money selling gloves, we'll do something else." And so that's the perspective I took with this company, is that as long as it's growing, we're going to stick to the core. Let's see what else we got here. Paul is from Belfast, Northern Ireland. Welcome. So J. Rose, Blink Mini, they charge now. So we did review the Blink Mini camera the other day, and it's confusing. So if you're not familiar with Blink, they've been making these awesome little security cameras. They're battery powered. I have a bunch of these. In fact, I use these outside my home. They're not as good as like a true security system would be. They're more like notification cameras. But I've got some in portions of my house, like outside, that nobody should ever be walking around. So if those cameras go off, then I know something's going down. And a lot of times we've got all sorts of animals that run around through here. So most of the time it's an animal setting it off in the middle of the night. But you get a notification on your watch. You can do two-way communication. And the batteries on these things last forever. So the cameras outside that I have that aren't frequently trafficked, even with the motion sensing on, the batteries last like 1.5 years. It's crazy. This one, this is my indoor floater camera that I set up in certain areas when I go away. This one, I've never replaced the batteries on it. They run on AA lithium batteries. And you got to make sure you put the right batteries in them. But they're really good. So they came up with an indoor camera, and it's kind of like their response to the Wyze cameras. Wyze cameras are selling, they still sell like hotcakes because they're very inexpensive. So they came up with a camera as part of the Blink line that costs about the same as the Wyze camera does, but it has less functionality. And one of the things that they've changed about it is that you don't get any free cloud storage. So on the Blink cameras here, they send up like 20 or 30 second clips to the cloud, and you get, I think, like a total of 8 or 10 minutes worth of storage for those clips. And because they're so short, that's, you know, depending on how often it goes off, you have a pretty good history of clips that get stored up there. They want a subscription for the cloud storage on the new indoor camera, but not on the existing one. So if you buy this one or the other outdoor camera they have, you get the same deal as before. You get some cloud storage. The new indoor camera, you don't get that. And it's confusing because I guess if you have these, then you get it. If you don't have these, you don't get it. I don't know. So I think they're going to probably have to clarify that a bit. Nando in the Amazon chat says, do they come with software? I'm assuming you're talking about the MOCA devices. Nope, they don't need software. You plug them in. So once you connect these things, you have two on your network. You plug them in, and you're done. They see each other. They come up. If you rewind the live stream, you'll see it happen. Just lights up, and you're good. They're really really plug and play, like true plug and play. Sean says, speaking of QNAP, do you prefer the QNAP UI over the Synology or vice versa? I've always preferred the Synology interface, and QNAP's been getting better. So they're close, but I think Synology's has been a little bit easier for me to work with. It mimics the kind of the desktop experience better, in my opinion. So TechFlood says, I can get 520 on a speed test. So on the speed test, you get 500, but not when you're downloading stuff. That might be a function of where you're connecting. It could be some routing issues in between. I'm not knowing where you're downloading from, so that would be something I would ask next. Sean's using the Netgear Ready NAS just because the price was right, but Synology and QNAP seem to be the leaders. Yeah, they definitely are. And these things are really little servers. So I've got, the one I run in the closet, that one's getting long in the tooth. It's probably about 5 or 6 years old. It's 6 years old now. Yeah, I hooked that up in 2014, 2015. It runs, all my stuff. I have a database server on there I use for some data storage stuff. I have a little SQL server running on that thing too. They're great little servers. I love them. And they're both good because what's interesting, whether you choose Synology, QNAP, or TerraMaster, or whatever, their interfaces are all different, but they're all running the same open source software for a lot of the server functions that you might run on it. One thing Synology's been doing that is really pretty amazing is and this is a function of where they're from, and I think QNAP might be from Taiwan also, but because Synology is based out of Taiwan, and because in China in particular, I'm sure they have a pretty big market in China, China can't access Google services. So on the Synology boxes, and it depends on which level you get, but the Intel-powered boxes, even the low-cost Intel boxes that are like $200 or $300 or $400 to get into the door with, those have the ability to almost fully replicate having a Google Apps account on the box itself that you own and control. So you've got a spreadsheet, you've got a word processor, it does all the multi-user stuff. Like it works, it is almost, it's not quite as good as Google's, but it is pretty darn close to it. It's really slick, and you have it under your full control. So you could have this box in your home. You could have it completely detached from the world, just on a VPN. You could do a VPN in, so like lock it behind your firewall and VPN in. It'll run the VPN server for you too. And you could have, 8 terabytes of storage on one of these boxes, provided your upload speed is good enough. I may have that soon, so we'll have to see, because that might change my Google Apps strategy here. But it's pretty amazing what they do. Ed Doyle says, the independent ISP rocks. Yeah, I'm going to look into that. I'm going to call the guy tomorrow. I'm going to still roll forward with the Comcast thing. I don't want to close that door, because I can imagine if I got to run wires on a pole, I may start hitting some regulatory issues. So that's the problem. So the way this ISP works is that there's like one of these top tier fiber providers that wire up all the cell towers in town. So if you're in a spot where that fiber is rolling by, it's easy to connect to. Where I am, it isn't here. In my neighborhood, it's down like on this water tower around the corner. So they'd have to run that cable all the way up here, and it's like a $35,000 expense just to run the cable and do whatever they need to do to get it to the house. So that's a lot of money. Not something I'm eager to spend. So in order to make that work, I would have to find people along the way that we can connect. And if I could do that, that would make it, even I could bring the cost down by 2/3, that might be enough, because I'd be willing to spend a little bit just to get that connection over here. But at the same time, if Comcast is willing to hook me up and charge me $300 a month, so be it, So we'll see what happens. Robert said that Go to NetSpeed broke the rules on Fern Street. So what happened with Go NetSpeed? So just so you all know, we had an interesting thing happen here in Connecticut. So the telephone poles are owned by either the phone company or the power company, depending on where you are. So where I am, the power company owns the pole outside my house. So everyone else, I think, has to pay the power company here to attach. So Comcast attaches to the pole, and they pay the power company. Actually, they don't pay the power company; they charge us to pay them. But you know what I mean. So we have a rule in Connecticut, and I guess part of the problem is it's hard to get on the pole for whatever reason. So they don't just let anybody up on the pole because they don't want a million wires on there. And there's certain things that you have to be able to meet to get on the pole. But they have always granted the municipality, the city, a spot on that pole. And they call that the municipal gain. So if the city needed to run its own wiring between facilities, they can do that. And we have that to some degree because our schools are on something called the Connecticut Education Network, which is a state-run fiber network for education. Because we had a significant, we still do, we had a significant digital divide in the state. And so there was some investment made in a fiber network because guess what? The utilities weren't doing anything about it, including the phone company. So they wired up a pretty decent network, and we've got it at our school down that way. And I think they're actually leasing the fiber from the company that does the cell phone towers too. I've learned a lot here about how all this stuff works. So where was I going with this? So anyway, so the town has, and the city has the ability to use part of that pole for their municipal gain. And a law was passed that allowed the municipality to run their own ISP if they wanted to. But it also allowed the town to lease its municipal gain space to a provider. So I believe what's happening in West Hartford is that the town is not running the internet, which I think is a bad idea for the local government to get into that business. But what they are doing is they're leasing the space that they have under the municipal gain to this Go NetSpeed, and that's how they've been able to start running fiber throughout the town. And some would say, well, doesn't that put them at a competitive advantage? It really doesn't, because they're paying the town. Comcast is paying the power company or the phone company, so it's not like they're getting anything more than Comcast is getting. And the difference, though, is that Go NetSpeed is building out a fiber network. So what they do is they go into a neighborhood, they wire up everybody they can, and then the next neighborhood over, they start marketing over to them, saying, hey, we're next door in this neighborhood. We'd like to come to your neighborhood. If you want it, sign up. When they get enough people, they then inch forward. And that's how they've been growing. And it's working for them. And it works great because they figure out, they amortize the cost of build out based on subscriber fees and everything else. So that's kind of where they're going with it. And it's been working, I think, there. And Comcast's problem is that they're so reliant on the coax infrastructure that they're going to have a hard time competing. So even this gigabits to the home, the fiber to the home product that Comcast has is not something they could hook up every house with at the moment, because they have to run fiber from a central switching location to the home. So it's a full cable run that they're doing for each customer. Versus what Go NetSpeed is doing, which is kind of one of these municipal shared fiber things. And nonetheless, it's better than what Comcast is doing over coax because it's a technology that works better for symmetrical communication. So that's kind of where it's at. And Robert in the chat here is a customer of Go NetSpeed. They charge no contracts, and they also guarantee to never raise prices either. So it's good stuff. Yes, so then our state comptroller was working on something with a statewide thing. And here's the problem is that I think what they were looking at was really trying to get cities and towns to kind of run their own infrastructure. And most towns are not equipped for that, and they don't have the budget for that. So where I am in my small town, we have a saying in town, which is that we deliver no services and we do it well. So the two big expenses are road infrastructure and schools. That's pretty much what we fund here. So you are on your own for garbage. You're on your own for water in most cases. There are parts of town that have city water, but it's not run by the municipality. It's run by a private utility. And then you're on your own for sewage too. So I have a septic tank in my backyard. So I have a well and a septic tank. And so I don't pay the city for any of that. My water, as long as my pump is working, my water's free. When the well goes down, I got to replace it. And actually, my well pump is nearing the end of its life cycle. So, but when it goes, it's not cheap because the well pump's expensive and it consumes a lot of electricity too. But they have some new well pumps now that can deliver city water pressure, which is what I'm really excited about because you don't get quite the same water pressure. So anyway, so that's how it goes. So a town that has no service delivery, no garbage, no sewage, no water, is not in a good place to suddenly start offering a new service like internet. And so I would say the town's better off either leasing its municipal gain to a company. By the way, Comcast sued, and I think all the big incumbent ISPs sued to prevent this municipal gain. Which is thrown out in court, by the way. They went to actually they didn't sue. They went to the regulatory body, who was like the rubber stamp. They just rubber stamp everything. So the regulatory body said, "Oh yeah, that's wrong. They can't do that." And then they went to court, and we the consumers won in court. So take that. But I don't think it's a good idea for municipalities maybe to run their own internet company, but perhaps they can lease the space. Maybe in some cases it makes sense for the municipality to run their own fiber and then allow companies to use that like you would a road. I think if you look at utilities the same way you look at the road, you can make the argument that if the municipality is not getting what it needs from the monopolies that are in their particular towns, then perhaps they might want to invest in some infrastructure. We have some towns here in Connecticut that run their own electric utility. So, if it works for the community, great. So we'll see how it goes. All right, let me see what we got here. Jeremy wants to know, is MOCA 2.5 more forgiving in regards to suboptimal coax signaling? Let's say an older home built in the late 80s. Yeah, so there's some comments about the RG6. You really need the RG6 cable. I will say, though, that in my house where I've got a million splitters everywhere, it works much better than I expected. Even in the rooms that are really, like you can't even get a good cable TV signal in those rooms, this works. So it's pretty forgiving. And I would say, the best thing to do maybe is to get them and try them and see what you get. Because you may not get the full 2.5 backbone, but if you only need a gig, it might be able to pull it off. But RG6 is what they recommend. And Jared says, but the fiber to the home cables are constructed differently from Comcast fiber coax. That's true. That's right. So like Comcast is running fiber by my house, but it's not the fiber you would plug into the home. But my argument has been they could very easily, I don't know how easily, but you could bring that fiber into some kind of municipal node like they're doing now. So they're bringing that fiber into a node and then running it out to coax. You could bring it into a node and do what you need to do to split it out into a home delivery thing. And they could totally do it. In fact, they could probably run a hybrid system for a while and get everybody converted over. But they are really at a disadvantage competitively if they're still relying on coax, especially when you've got, Go to NetSpeed is giving you half a gig in both directions for $70. That's a good deal. So, yeah. All right. Tino Sparks, yes. So 2.5 gig NICs are a thing. Where did mine go? I'll show you the one I got recently. The folks from Pluggable sent me this not too long ago, and I got to get going here because it's almost time for me to start feeding the family. My poor girls are so. We got to get this school opened up again. So Pluggable sent me this 2.5 gig adapter. This is over Ethernet. Or USB, I should say. And we did a full review of this. You can check it out on my channel or here on Amazon. I have a review on the Amazon listing for this product. And plugs right into your USB port. It works with USB-A or USB-C as long as it's a USB 3 connection. And we tested it with both an old USB-A port and a USB-C port. Works great. So it's good stuff. All right, everybody, guess what? I got to run because I'm hearing the pitter-patter of feet upstairs. And, oh, and I just got some packages that I'm going, so the other thing, the next project we're going to do, I'm not sure exactly when, but it's going to be very soon, is I'm going to build my new production computer, and it looks like a bunch of parts just arrived according to my, my push notification here. So that's going to be a fun project, because right now I'm running the whole channel off a laptop. It's working fine, but I want more. So we're going to do that. And the other thing that I'm waiting on is another antibody test. So let me tell you about this, everybody. So you'll recall that I did a whole video on antibody testing. We had a great interview with some experts in that area. And I discovered that the test that I took, it's not that it's not accurate, but it's less accurate the farther out from a COVID infection that you get. Now, what I've had a hypothesis that is becoming more and more likely to have been the case. And you've probably been hearing about how a lot of people came back from CES sick, and there was some speculation, perhaps, like I had my own speculation, that perhaps COVID was already spreading at CES in January. A lot of the timelines kind of line up with that. American Public Radio, you can find them online. They did a story on this. They found a guy who I've been in touch with, who was at the show at the same time I was at the same places I was at in the Venetian Sands area. Everybody who I've talked to who was at CES that went to where I went to in the Sands Expo Center, all of us came back sick. We all got sick around the same day. 2 people that I talked to were down for 3 weeks with respiratory issues. I was down for about a week and a half with a high fever, the exhaustion, a little gastro going on, you know, some of the things that you're hearing about. It was not pleasant. I did have some shortness of breath. I didn't have the whole thing that a lot of people are unfortunately experiencing with it, but it was, you know, it was very bizarre, because I started feeling better. And the day that I felt better, I went and took the dog out for a walk. And I have, like I mentioned, I have these really hilly parts of town that I walk through, and I couldn't get up the hill. I was like not able, I wasn't like going to pass out, but I was just like, whoa, I'm really fatigued here. And what I've been reading now is that a lot of these COVID patients, I didn't have my pulse oximeter at that point. I actually bought one around the time this happened. I didn't even think anything of it. But needless to say, I think it's possible I could have contracted it there. Now that there's a guy that tested positive with an antibody test who was there, it kind of elevates that possibility. Now, I took an antibody test, and the test came back negative. However, the test that I took is the least accurate out there, especially when you are X number of days out from your recovery. So I recovered the 2nd or 3rd week of January, and I took the test maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. And this test looks for the IgG antibody, which is the long-term antibody, as well as the IgM. However, on the IgG, 20 days out, in this study that there's a university working on all these different antibody tests that are out there, the test that I took was only finding that antibody about 66 or 67% of the time. So there's a good chance that it was a true negative, but there's also a good chance that it was a false negative. So I found another lab, and I'm paying for the test, that does what's called an ELISA test, which is, this particular test is a US test. The one I took before was a Chinese test. This US test is based on the ELISA method. It goes to a wet lab. They do a lot more chemistry on the blood, and it is able to more finely detect any antibodies you might have. So the detection rate for someone who's out X number of days like I am is 90% versus like 67, 66. So my odds are better that if I am truly positive, or was, the antibody would show up more likely with this test. So I've ordered it. They're sending something to the house, and then a phlebotomist is coming out here to take my blood. And then in a couple of days after they send the sample back, I'll know. And so I've decided that if this test says I'm negative, then I didn't have it and I had something else. But what was so odd about it was that when I got back, everybody around me got sick. My wife got sick, not as bad as I was sick, but she got sick for a couple days. You know, she had the milder kind of symptoms. My kids were kind of lethargic, but they didn't get sick at all, but that seems to be the case here. But people who were at our house the day after I got back, some of them got sick, their kids got sick, the people they came in contact with. I mean, I have this whole contact trace down here. So if I didn't give them this, then they got something from me. But it just seems like, and then it went through the whole school and yada, yada, yada. So we'll see what it is, because right now, like, they're not seeing a lot of cases in my town. So we'll see what develops out of this. So hopefully I'll know one way or the other. And if it is positive, what I'll probably do is get on some of these people that I've been talking to, because they haven't been able to get tested yet. So I started pointing them at this test because it's commercially available. So we'll see what comes back, what things come back with. But one guy was like sick for 3.5 weeks. He was like in the hospital, like the whole nine. So, and we were all in the same place. So we'll see what happens. Jeremy Barnes, thank you for becoming a member of the channel. Thank you very much. And let me answer your question now. Would this saturate, 2.5 gigs saturate the USB connection? Not so much on a USB-C. I think this is only a Gen 1 device, actually, even on the USB-C. But you get about 5 gigs on USB-C typically, so you still have some room. But if you have it plugged into a hub or something, yes, you could see some, you may not get the full performance. So I would say you'd want this on a dedicated USB-C connection that can support that. Let's see. Jared wants to know, do at least have a good monitor to hook your new PC build up to? So I'm going to hook it up to the monitor. I have a monitor here. I can actually show you what it looks like. This is just a 1080p monitor, which is all I really need for what I do here. Let me show you pull up my NDI camera here, and let's just turn the bandwidth down a little bit, and I will show you. Woo! There we go. This is what I have it hooked up to. So this is what I'm seeing right now as I'm producing the show. And this is vMix. So I've been running this now for the last week, and the laptop behind it is the whole channel is running off of that thing right now. It's been working really, really well. So it works with NDI, as this camera is NDI. And this laptop, with all the stuff we're doing, even if I've got like the 2-up shot here, so I can hit this and then cut to that, and you can see it going. I'm only using about 25% of the CPU right now, and about 13% of the GPU. Ooh, sorry, everybody. Woo! Feedback. About 13% of the GPU memory. So I've got a lot of overhead, or a lot of room here to do more. And this is PC software. You can get this and just download it. They have a 90-day trial right now. I did a live stream a couple of days ago you all should check out, because it was really cool to see how this worked. I'm just blown away by it. They have a way that you can bring in callers. So you send them a link, and they click the link, and they just show up on your thing without no client, nothing. Like, you can just interview them, and it's great. I just love it. So, so it's good stuff. Yeah, it's good. So Michael Keys, thank you for the kind words. Thank you, Slinky. Yeah, vMix is dope. I am so, and it's funny because I have friends that work in this business, in the video business, and they've been saying, Lon, you got to go to vMix, you got to try it out. And I'm like, I like the TriCaster because it's an appliance and it works. But this has been, like I said, I challenged myself to do a week, 2 weeks of just vMix, no TriCaster. I haven't booted the TriCaster up in a week and a half. And this has been working brilliantly. And there's actually parts of the interface that are easier for me to work with. So it's enabled the workflow to be a little quicker. And I'm not getting some of the glitchiness that I was getting with the TriCaster, because I couldn't. So the issue with the TriCaster was I couldn't upgrade it, because if I upgraded it, the codec they're now using to record is not compatible with Final Cut Pro, and I have to do an export. Usually not a big deal, but their export code is bugged, and I can't export to the format I need to export to without it breaking the video. So I was stuck. I'm like, you know what? Am I going to spend like thousands on this thing? And so needless to say, the machine I'm building for production, I could actually run it off the laptop for the rest of eternity, but I wanted to do a little better than just the laptop. So the machine I'm building is going to still save me $5,000 over buying a new TriCaster. It's that, I mean, that's significant. So, and that's with all the bells and whistles on there. So it's going to be good stuff. All right, Jeremy Barnes, going back to Comcast, keep an eye out, probably a long way out, on DOCSIS 4.0. Yeah, I was talking to somebody in town the other day about that, because that will provide the symmetrical gigabit, presumably. But I think the problem they're going to have with DOCSIS 4.0 or any of these increases in performance, especially on the upstream side, is that they're going to continually be battling interference on all of these legs. And they're going to have to either create smaller legs, which is going to be costly for them, or continually just play a game of whack-a-mole with interference problems up and down these lines that they're running. Because you get one rusty connector and then the whole thing falls apart. So I've learned a lot about this stuff. I'm not an expert on it by any stretch. I hear from cable people all the time, so I'm trying not to sound like I know everything. But it's just like, I just know what it's like to deal with technology that is constantly breaking. And I just envision this stuff not working right. So Reese Armstrong wants to know, how much is vMix? Well, what I would do is go and download it, because you can run it for free for 90 days right now. They've extended their trial period, and I would just play with it. You can get the basic HD version for $60. I'm going to get the 4K version, and there's some additional features that you get from that. But the 4K version, even though I'm not going to use it for 4K, it's $700, but still, for what I do, it's a justifiable expenditure. But for $60, you can do pretty well with it. And what's cool is that they will, if let's say you decide you run with the basic HD version for a year, and then you decide I need something more, then you can they'll count what you already paid into what you're going to upgrade to. So there's a whole matrix on their site. You can check it out. But it's working. It's amazing how good it is. What you do need, though, and I've mentioned this earlier today, is that you need the NVIDIA GPU on board. It uses that for rendering the video, but it also uses it for the encoders. So it'll run on an Intel GPU, but you really need the NVIDIA. So I would say, a multi-core i5 or i7, probably the i7, and you definitely want the NVIDIA GPU. And if you got those two things, you're good. So the laptop I'm running here, 6 cores and a 2080, which is a lot. But the system I'm building is an i9 9900K, which is actually similar to my gaming laptop. I'm going to take the my gaming desktop upstairs. And remember, we upgraded that desktop a while ago, so I'm going to take the 1080 that was in there that's been idle, sitting around the floor over there. I'm going to hook that up as the GPU, and we'll see how it does at 4K. So it's good. And actually, and Travis brings up the NVIDIA encoders. They're awesome. Yep, the NVIDIA encoder is doing what you see right now. And the NVIDIA encoders in the most recent driver update, so the NVIDIA cards always let you do 2 simultaneous encodings. Now you can do 3. So you've got an extra encoder now with the latest drivers. So it is good stuff. Reese has got a Blade 13 i7 1650. Yeah, you're golden with that. You're golden with that. And so what I'm doing on the PC build is I'm going to have a 500 gig, I have a Samsung 500 gig that's going to boot the computer up. And then I've got a 2 terabyte NVMe Samsung that's going to be the recording drive. We've got 32 gigs of RAM, the 1080, the i9, a nice big case with big fans, large fans to keep the noise down. And I bought a deck link card from Blackmagic, which allows for 4 simultaneous HDMI inputs. I was initially going to run everything off of NDI, but I think I'm going to, because I'm typically just working in this space here, I'm going to have my 3 cameras connecting directly over HDMI to the deck link, and then I have some room to bring in additional sources over HDMI. So I think, or over NDI. So I'll probably do that. I actually own now 4 NDI boxes. I've got a Spark Plus that I just bought, which supports 4K. I've got a Bird Dog, which is 1080p, and then I've got 2 of the Spark Connects, which are the H.264 boxes. Somebody was asking about my friend Sarah, who went with me to CES, about whether or not she's going to get her channel going. At some point, yes. We were going to get started, and then the COVID thing happened. She's got 2 kids, and her husband works as he works in the ICU, so she is not able to start doing anything at the moment. So once this thing is over with and we're back to somewhat of a normal lifestyle, we'll probably try to get her going. Gunboo wants to know, AMD Radeon cards don't offer. I don't believe they do with vMix. I think they're supported, but I don't think they are as supported as the NVIDIA cards are. So I would download it and try it, and see what it does. Because again, you get 90 days, and the 90-day trial gives you like the full every feature. So there's no limit, so you could really play around with it. Reese wants to know, does vMix do the live streaming? Yep, it does the live streaming to YouTube. Right now it's live streaming to YouTube and to Amazon. So I've got 2 streams going out. The NVIDIA card is doing the encoding. And just like my TriCaster, I'm able to record. So I was recording the video while I was streaming live. We didn't have any drop frames. Everything's been working really nicely. So it's good. This coffee mug, they're no longer in business. ThinkGeek was selling these. When ThinkGeek had that half-off sale where they liquidated their inventory, I got this. I got the Picard thing over there, a couple other things too. So it's good stuff. All right. Okay, everybody, I got to run. It is time for me to walk the dog and then make dinner for the family. So I appreciate everyone's viewership to this afternoon. And thank you all for coming in. This was a good stream. We had a good crowd here. So I'll be back again soon. You know, I'm always streaming now, so we will have more to come. And I think the next stream will either be that other MOCA device, or we'll be doing the new production PC build if all the parts come in. But I think the case is like coming last, so I'll see what's waiting for me upstairs, and we'll go from there. And yeah, and Robert says Picard was so good. Oh my gosh, that Picard show is awesome. Loved it. Loved it. Love the original show too, but I love new things with legacy characters that work, and Picard was good. All right, you guys are going to keep me on here forever, and I'm going to get in trouble. So I will see you all later. Thank you all for tuning in. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anything on the Amazon chat here, and that will do it. This is archived, by the way, so if you missed anything, you can check it out on the archive, which you can find at Lon.TV/livestreams. Okay, everybody, thank you very much. We're going to end the Amazon stream here, and we will be closing out the YouTube stream too. Bye-bye for now, but we'll be back.